So I see that it's 8:30 and I'm going to call the Law and Government Committee meeting to order at 8:30. May I have a roll call, Kathy?
Anhoff. Sullivan.
Here.
Kunkel.
Here.
Sauger.
I'm here, but you need to vote me in.
Campbell.
Here.
Shorten.
Here.
Altoff.
Here. May I have a motion, Ms. Campbell, seconded by Mr. Kunkel, to allow Mr. Sauger to participate remotely. Brian, would you like to state the reason that you need to participate remotely, please?
Yeah, elder family care.
Yes, thank you. Duly noted. Is there any public comment? I don't believe so. I saw that Dan was going to sign in, but we're going to have him talk during that agenda item. So thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Any member comments this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on.
This is when you want me to speak.
I apologize. Dina Krieger is also on the line via telephone. When we get down to that agenda item, which is under the reports, so give me about 15 minutes and I think we'll get there.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I apologize. There is no new business. Legislative update. Alicia, and thank you. I'll note, thank you for letting us know and getting caught up on all the things that were swirling and getting that legislative report out before our meeting, but after some issues were addressed. Shaylin, you too this morning. No, thank you very much for joining. I'll note that Gloria Van Hoff has joined the meeting. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. As the chair said, Alicia Schuler, Deputy County Administrator for those at home. I'm going to start out with the high level stuff. I mean, everybody has probably heard by now that the build agenda did not make it through, but we should be expecting to see it in the veto session. So I'm sure you're all wondering, when is the veto session? That's going to bridge over 2 months, November 17th to 19th, and then into December 1 to 3. So again, we'll be keeping an eye on the different pieces of the build agenda from the governor and seeing where they're going with that.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead, please.
Also, a little nugget for you that'll be a little bit more important later on in the report is the United States Senate is not in Washington, D.C. right now, and they won't be until July 13th. And they're in a state work period right now, and they'll come back to Congress again on August 10th to September 11th. Now, that'll impact some of the stuff later down in the federal side of the House. So, back to state, personal property tax, replacement tax. The state again decided to take some money out of that side of the equation to the tune of $407 million across the state, even though they kept LGDF at the same level. So again, we are not going to be getting the same revenues, from the state that we were in the past year. There are some potential unfunded mandates that didn't make it across the finish line, thank goodness, and there are some that we don't believe will necessarily impact the county at this time, and that was the Senate Bill 3076, but again, we'll keep on evaluating that. Finally, I want to give some kudos out to Senator DeWitt and Rep. Ness. Those two were literally working all night the day that the budget was being pushed back and forth between the chambers to try to include the police social work bill into the budget implementation bill. It ultimately did not happen, but again, they were literally working into the wee hours of the night trying to get us funding for our program. So I do appreciate their efforts. I know that, Representative Ness is going to try to push it forward, in veto session, et cetera, but again, we'll just keep on it and keep looking to see opportunities to secure funding for a program that really is unique across the state and leading the way, and making it so that folks can get, the services they need and get connected with services instead of asking law enforcement officers to provide it for them. So, more to come on that. The next in my piece is build legislation, so I'm going to hand it over to Shaylin.
Just a very quick update on that we're still working on the housing legislation. All indications are that something is still going to be discussed in the fall, so we want to make sure we're on top of it. The COGs are continuing to meet. Yesterday, I officially got a email from the governor's office. Morgan Evans sent out a response with some bullet points. I will share that with Kathy so she can get it out to you. It looks like they took a lot of the municipal feedback, a lot of local government feedback, and they have about 6 bullet points that they kind of address. On the surface level, they seem pretty reasonable. Of course, we'll have to see what the details are when if there's any legislation that is introduced. So it's still out there.
Anybody have any questions for either one of these wonderful ladies? Thank you. Anything else? More?
I just
Yes.
wanted to get a couple other things that couple other pieces. I know that we were looking at funding for probation officers and salaries and whatnot, because that was a piece of legislation that did not ultimately come through, which is a shame. So again, we'll keep an eye on that and see if there's any chance that we can get more money into the county, but again, it didn't come through. Also, Road to Housing Act. This was the one that I was trying to learn more about. The Road to Housing Act gives counties a lot more flexibility in terms of trying to bring housing into their counties. It allows for CDBG money to be allocated to housing improvements, et cetera. It actually passed in a bipartisan way in both chambers by high margins. So again, but last week, the president did say that he was not going to sign unless there was election reform. So the reason why I bring it up is because the way that the timelines come together, if the president does not sign, within the next 10 days-ish, because it was just delivered to him yesterday, that bill could potentially have to start from the beginning again and be refiled. So again, so this will be something that we'll have to keep an eye on to see if it will continue to progress going forward. So just something to keep an eye on. I am still watching the transportation reauthorization bill, and that is going to be huge. That's the one that provides additional money for bridges and and counties, et cetera. So, but again, that's probably going to be a continuing resolution because again, there's not a lot of time to get things through by the end of September when it needs to be done because you're going to see both chambers out in August. And FEMA reform is also.
Election year.
I'm sorry?
So it's an election year.
Well, again, keeping an eye on it. I know that Scott Hennings and the DOT is looking at it very closely as well to be able to understand all the potential impacts to the counties. Finally, the FEMA reform bill, which also has a good share of support, actually had its first Illinois representative actually sign on just today, if I'm not mistaken. And now it's at 86 co-sponsors. So I want to see this one go through and see the FEMA reform happen too. So that's what I've got right now. Are there any questions, any other things you want me to look at going forward?
Anybody interested in the Bears update? Just a little humor this morning. Okay. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And I apologize. I do not believe that I asked for a motion to approve the minutes as presented this morning. Mr. Shorten, seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I would like to believe I was waiting for Gloria, but
I was like right here, right here.
Sorry.
Thanks,
And I did hear an aye from Brian up there too. And before we go on to the routine consent agenda, I did look in the room and noted that our circuit clerk, Kathy Keefe, is in the audience. Stand up there, Kathy, and come forward and be recognized. Kathy was in I've got the article in front of me, but she was recognized in the To Civility for her professionalism. It's a big deal. So I want to note that they gave a long list of all of her accomplishments, how long she's been in the office, what qualities are most important for professionalism in yours, and the number one you said is integrity, which I think is so cool. Anyway, I'd like us to recognize you officially and congratulate you for being recognized for the outstanding job that you have done for so many years. And I want to thank Alicia too for sending me the article. So everyone is doing their job, so thank you. You want to say anything while you're here?
Yeah, well, I can give you just a little update on what this resolution is on. It's so this is our AI project that we have going with Tyler, our AI e-filing project. You might notice that we're paying the support a little late, based on when it was due, because we were kind of on the fence whether we feel like we're over the hump. We're definitely not over the hump with this project. It's but we're making great progress. It's doing we get about 500-600 documents e-filed a day, and it's maybe handling about 125 of those, which is not really where we need it to be in order to pay for this expensive support and maintenance. The next piece, it needs to learn how to do documents that have court dates on them, because that's a big chunk of notice of motions that are scheduling a court date. So that's the piece that we're working on. If we can get it over that hump, then I do think we'll be able to see it, be able to process enough to make it worthwhile.
Where is that break-even point, do you think? How many?
We were thinking, 3 to 4 to be able to come down, possibly 3 to 4 staff. The fact that it's, over $300,000 annually. I think in our budget we're going to present this year, we're going to eliminate one vacant position that we have. So I don't think we debated about 2, but I think at this point we're only comfortable, just coming down 1 position. Hopefully, if we can get it over the hump and it can learn how to handle court dates, we should be able to probably reduce a few others by attrition.
And is the software support guys helping? I mean, is that?
They do have quite a team. We have had not the greatest experience with Tyler. They also do our eFile Illinois, which is the statewide contract for e-filing that the Supreme Court has. And we've definitely had our struggles with, the Tyler company. And then this company we did the AI project with, Tyler bought them kind of in the, right about the same time we were signing the contract with them. Will County has had great success, but it took them 2 to 3 years to get over the hump where it was really, making a difference for them. I think we're close, and we have been impressed with the amount of effort that they've thrown into it. Initially, they were only giving us a certain number of documents, but they've kind of thrown that out the window, and they're, letting the bots learn as many documents as they can get it to learn. The bots aren't, AI is definitely not the be-all to end-all. The bots are like training really slow employees.
Well, it's complicated. It's not,
right,
it's not really
just
straightforward.
It is.
I wouldn't think, yeah.
And a lot of it's, the fact that people don't file documents that look the same. So I guess, in their defense, they're looking at these documents that, it kind of looks like this one that they learned, but, it's a little different. And so the bots are struggling a little bit, but they're still right now knocking out at least 125 documents a day, probably. So, they're probably about maybe, covering 1 staff person. And with probably 90% accuracy. So, yeah, so we're, so far we've been impressed with what it can do. We just have to get it over this next hump, and then I think it will be a success.
Mr. Kunkel.
Based on your past track record, I was all in on this at first blush. But now after you hear me talk, now I'm starting to feel the backbone. What is your degree of confidence? Of course, we'd like this to create an efficiency down the road.
It will be, once we can get over the hump, it'll be huge, the efficiency that it can create.
But how much is it? How comfortable are you of getting over that hump? Because you're there in the trenches with it.
I think right now, we just have to see, because it's learning the documents that have dates on it. And that's a huge portion of our documents, notice of motions that actually have court dates on them. That, and then the other piece it started learning is how to file a new small claims case, where it could actually handle new small claims cases coming in. If we could get over those 2 humps, it would be more than worth its
But are we talking years or are we talking months?
No, we're hopefully 6 months. At least in 6 months, we should be able to see whether can make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely before we get to the next payment of support.
I hope so. Yeah, thank you.
Good point. Ms. Campbell, then Ms. Van Hoff.
So this is just getting them, everything that gets filed, it's getting filed electronically through this learning process. And then you have a e-file as the case management. So is this uploading it to the full circuit court? Is that the?
It does, it comes in through
Like, and then
eFile Illinois, which is a statewide system that the Supreme Court funds. And so the bots actually handle both pieces. They handle the filing through eFile, coming out of eFile Illinois, and then they also handle what needs to be done to get it into our case management system. So it is quite a process. And so what it's doing for us now, like I said, it's allowing us to come down one staff person for sure in this, in this next budget.
Because these two systems talk to each other.
Yes, it's an interface, but there's, some points that someone has to look at some things to, to get it in there correctly.
Ms. Renhoff?
Yes, thank you, Kathy, for being here, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you would have any impact on this question, but you said that one vacant position would be eliminated.
Right, we're gonna do that in this year's budget.
My question is, does that impact our budget? Because that position was in the budget for upcoming, for the budget we just approved, was it not?
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
In the fiscal year 2027 budget, that'd be one less FTE.
Right, it's about, with benefits, about 60,000.
Okay, and then when this is done, you said possibly another.
We'd like to see it another 2 to 3.
Okay.
If it really could get over the hump and learn these other big pieces that it needs to learn, that was kind of the ultimate goal of it, to be successful.
Okay, so that's great. And then, do you know how does Will County's population compares to ours?
They're probably at least 4 times the size of us, I guess, at least in their filings, they're at least 4. So they've got a lot bigger filing pool for it to work on. I think that's what Tyler is looking at. They're looking at us to see, can they make it successful for a mid-sized county like us? It's working for someone who's got a huge pool of filings like Will County. But with us being smaller and the big price tag on their support, they need to see if it can be successful for a county our size.
But the good thing is that it took them, it should take us less time because.
Right, yes, they definitely have done it before.
You said a couple of years.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we benefited some from the fact that, Will County had, more of the pain, I guess, probably up front.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Motion then to approve the items on the routine consent agenda. Ms. Campbell, seconded by Ms. Van Hoff. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sullivan,
Yes.
Van Hoff,
Yes.
Kunkel,
I'm like one of those bots, I'm really slow on this. Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Sauger,
Yes.
Shorten,
Yes.
Altough.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very, very much. And again, congratulations
Thank
for the
you very
recognition.
much.
Really, very nice. There are no presentations. There is no old business. There are no budget reviews. We're going to go right down to the reports. I am going to ask for latitude and permission to do 11.2 discussion first so that Ms. Krieger can make her presentation, kind of explain what's going on, and then we can have the full-fledged conversation about the animal cruelty, if that's okay. Dina shouldn't have to stay on for that. So getting nods, I'm going to change the agenda then. We'll go to 11.2, which is the discussion of veteran organization fee reduction. I saw Ms. Krieger and Ms. Von Bergen at an event last night, and as I looked at them, it occurred to me that maybe I should do a little bit more due diligence and look at the statute with regard to this issue. It will be going before Public Health and Community Services Committee on Thursday. I also believe it'll go, or it's scheduled to go before Finance, but I went back and read the state statute and had a conversation with Director Adamson this morning. This issue really goes to the Board of Public Health. The Board of Public Health statutorily has absolute authority to set their own fees. So really, and Ms. Krieger is aware, we had a conversation this morning too. So I want her to take the opportunity to explain to you why she's doing this and the rationalization behind it. And if anybody has any additional questions or comments, but the next step will be is that we will get that on the agenda for the next public health meeting. And I apologize to all of you, I should have done that beforehand. So I'm throwing myself on your mercy. Dina, do you want to go ahead and explain how this came about and why it's important to you?
Absolutely, and I will stay on for the discussion related to the animal cruelty as well. I'm super interested to hear the dialogue there. But thank you for having me. I did ask that some of my, so I'm not reading at you, I know you all know how to read, that it was prepared for you in advance, that you have a copy of kind of what I'm going over. I asked for basic estimation processing costs by permit for our veteran organizations, and it was very minimal. And so I've tried to compile in front of you those costs, and so that you can review them. All of these, I've also asked that we exclude liquor costs from being a comparison. And so I'm hoping that everyone has that proposal in front of you. Also, this conversation came up, I believe it was a month ago, talking about permits and fees, and we've been having these dialogues with DD and Public Health, and so conversations come up with veterans and other organizations. And so I've also had constituents reaching out in dialogue about the veterans specifically. So I started having this conversation and wanted to prepare for you guys in advance my thoughts on this. I don't have this for fact, but I do have Lake County does not charge a fee for, as far as I know, American Legion 491, and I'm not sure if that includes also waiving full inspections or minimal inspection required. So with that being said, I just wanted you to review kind of where I'm coming from as far as estimated costs for veterans, what I was given, again, minimal, costs, total administrative fees, excluding liquor licenses, you see in front of you, and then comparison revenue from, what the county is operating from veteran organizational permits as a net administrative loss. And then, so my proposal is to reduce administrative burden on veteran organizations, county staff, while maintaining appropriate, regulation. And so the basic, fiscal analysis looks like that, the administrative costs associated with processing the permits are more, right, than the revenue basically generated. And so it looks like if we could look to have established a single annual veteran organization permit fee, I came up with $50 as a general fee that would cover raffle permitting in a calendar year, temporary entertainment permits within that year. It would require, obviously compliance with the health, safety, and zoning for those regulations. It would exclude liquor licensing requirement, which would remain unchanged. The benefit overall reduces administrative burden, simplifies permitting processes for the veteran organization, provides predictable annual revenue, encourages more veteran fundraising and community programming, recognizes public service contributions of veteran organizations, aligning with county practices with broader government efforts to providing and supporting veteran serving nonprofits. So my recommendation, I thought that law and government could look to have a conversation about this, and I understand now it's going to go to public health. And keep in mind, this proposal does not eliminate regulatory review. It just looks at how the county charges for them. And it's a marginal workload that's created by the veteran organizations that's really small. And And the administrative burden of fee collection itself also has costs. So that would be able to, if we had a flat fee, it would reduce that time, the payment, the staff correspondence, duplication, et cetera. And we know that veteran organizations provide measurable public benefit. Veterans Path to Hope and that Hope for Warriors, I'm just providing a couple, and they provide services that reduces demand on government systems by supporting housing stability, mental health services, peer support, emergency assistances, employment, I can keep going, right? And typically counties charge less than actual cost recovery for these organizations, park district programming, building permit discounts, et cetera. So that is kind of in a nutshell. I also have, a compromise approach if the public health decides, that fee is more burdensome. Instead of just doing an annual, $50 fee, we can figure out other ways for, including direct pass-through. But my goal is that the veterans have a flat annual fee for each of their organizations for the year.
And so
That's it.
that's perfect. Does anybody have any questions for Dina? Ms. Krieger? Yes, Mr. Shorten.
I don't know if it's a question so much as a statement.
Sure.
And I'm certainly pro-veteran. My father was a Purple Heart veteran, served in Korea. I guess I would like to have an idea of how many other non-veteran organizations are impacted by these fees, and if there's an opportunity to streamline those, make them more time and cost effective for everyone, I'd be in favor of that.
And I think, again, I will bring this back to this committee so you can hear, but I think Public Health Board needs to do their due diligence and get that information. Obviously, they're here in our audience, so they're taking copious notes, and we'll do that so that you have that information. I will tell you, and Dina and I have had this conversation, my concern is we already know that we have significant pressures upon our conversations as we look to the budget. And as much as we want to do really good things, because we all do love our veterans and our children and our dogs and everyone else, I really think that we have to be very cautious moving forward on how we approach these things. We did do food pantries last year, if you'll remember, is that we allowed them not to have, what was it? They don't pay for the permit, correct. So we did do that last year. And I am, again, we have to remember, government does not make money. We're prohibited from making money. That's in the statutes. And then number two, I am very sensitive that I don't want us to come back and say, public health, you're spending too much money, your fees aren't high enough, blah, blah, have that conversation, because those are the things that we're asking them to look at. So, Mr. Kunkel, question or comment?
The comment only that it's obviously a bit presumptuous and premature for us to be dealing with any of this until public health gets a good crack at this. So if we could, with no bias, just let this push aside.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Totally my lack of research, so I apologize to all of you. But I do like the idea, again, that every board member has the opportunity to bring any idea that is theirs forward for all of us to consider, and this was just a step in that direction. So Dina, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm
Pam?
sorry, Brian, I apologize. Yes, sir.
It's quite all right. First off, I just want to thank Dina. I think you've done a lot of research here. You've, I think, forwarded something that's important for consideration, acknowledging absolutely that this is under the purview of the Board of Health, and we need to respect and appreciate that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with providing the voice as they go through their considerations. As a former mayor, we comped anything that had to do with veterans, any permit, any associated. That's not the effort here, but it is to bring it into a reasonable range. I think Dina's suggestion is a very positive one. I'm grateful for her efforts in this regard, and I would support anything that the Public Health Board determines to be most appropriate. So I do thank you, Dina, for this, and I'm supportive of the veterans, and anything we can do to reduce costs would be great.
Thank you. Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, and I agree. I think we do need to wait until the Public Health Board weighs in. I do think it's very important, and Dina did go through a lot of work, so thank you very much. I guess my concern would be, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations that serve broad interest groups, if not interest groups is not quite the right word, but residents who have different needs and require different services. And so I think there could be an argument made for a lot of them to provide that relief to them as well for costs. And the challenge we have right now is we're trying to bring our fees in line with what it takes us to actually provide the service. And if we don't, then somebody else has to subsidize that.
Right.
And so that becomes the concern. I mean, how do we all love our veterans, and we would love to, and we have a lot of organizations that serve them. How do we make that fair across the boards and still be able to provide these services?
Ms. Van Hoff?
Yes, I just actually wanted to echo just what Member Campbell said. I seem to remember that we had some pushback when we gave some relief to the pantries at budget time, and I think that we have to keep that in mind too. I come from a family of veterans. I love them. I also love the dogs and the homeless, and all of them. So it's like once you start making allowances for one, other ones are going to step forth. So I'm glad that it's going to go back to where it belongs in public health, and we can deal with it from there. And then when budget time comes along, you can remember what you voted for when this comes to your committee, because this is something that happens all the time. We say, okay, yes, we're going to do this, but when budget time comes along, we're like, why we do this? So let's keep all of this in mind.
Okay, we'll keep you informed as we move forward. And if anyone is interested, Public Health meets the third Monday of every month at 6:30.
We are going to have a regulation ordinance.
Will this go on that?
Meeting on the 8th.
July 8th, correct. Where we will also be talking about our next item up for discussion, which is the ordinance amendment regarding animal cruelty. And I'm going to try and keep this tight. So again, I'm going to start my whole day with apologizing. This was brought forward when Member Sagar brought a suggested ordinance template for the comments that were made during public comment about specifically the detailing that was occurring at some of our rodeo events. We had a meeting with staff, which included the state's attorney's office, included the sheriff's department, included animal control, public health, and we came up with the amendment that I presented to Public Health and Community Service. I, for whatever blank reason, did not ask for Mr. Sagar to be included in that meeting, and obviously what we came up with was not exactly what he had envisioned. We have been working with the Farm Bureau as well to get better feedback. So what I want to do is have this discussion. I'm going to ask Mr. Sagar to explain why he hates this amendment as much as he does. I have law enforcement, our sheriff's department is here. I have members from Public Health here. I have members from the Farm Bureau here. I have members from the state's attorney here. And you know what? There's lots of room around this table if you guys won't come, bring a chair and come on up. And then, we can introduce everybody who's here, and you can ask the questions that you need after they make their presentation on how they feel about the amendment that is on the 30-day review. Okay. There have already, and Scott will go into that, there already have been suggested changes to this amendment. So what we have in front of us, I'm going to guarantee you, is not going anywhere. But I really would like the input, and I really would like all of you to hear what we had heard from all of our professional expertise with regard to this proposal. So Brian, can I kind of turn it over to you, and can you explain your reaction to what was presented and the areas that you would specifically like to see changed? Then I'm going to ask for the state's attorney's office to explain the recommendations they made, because originally Mr. Sager had made a suggestion that we keep it in the ordinances dealing with permitting, right? And then when we talked to the state's attorney, there was some concern, and that's when it also got incorporated into animal control. Everybody following me? Okay, so we'll get, Scott, you want to add to that, please?
Yeah, just to remind everybody, so this is a two-pronged approach to address this issue. What we're dealing with this morning is an amendment to the Public Health Ordinance specifically for animal control. The other component is amendments to the temporary use permits in the UDO that deal specifically with these types of events. The difference being the UDO amendments apply to events and are specific to permits issued for a property. This is something that would apply to the four corners of the county generally. And so, but we're only dealing with this first component, and this follows what we're going to call is the Boone County model, because Henry County is not the only county dealing with this question, and we have Boone County has made some headway, which the state's attorney had reviewed, and so just want to make sure that we're understanding that there's two prongs to this, and this is the one that's on the table right now for the global application of the county.
And that is what I was referencing. Originally, Brian's ordinance was a change to the TUP in our UDO, and then we incorporated it into the animal control. So, Ms. Camp.
Before we go too far, so on today's agenda of the 1, 2, and 3, I'm trying to, which is the one that was back from last month? That's on review.
So there's one that is, yeah, let me pull up the agenda specifically. You do have all three attachments. You have what was put on the table by Member Althoff at Public Health and Community Services at the end of May. And that one was attached to the ordinance as an amendment. That was discussed at the June meeting cycle. That is on the table. You have Member Sager's proposal before you, what he had originally submitted, his proposal and suggestions. And the third one is actually the hard copy that which is in front of you. It has a title of Draft Evolving Amendment to the Public Health Ordinance. That is the topic of our conversation today. The original amendment that was put on by Member Althoff, as Member Althoff stated, which put on, was intended to evolve. Right? As we were working through the discussions and getting all the various points of input, including Farm Bureau and further conversations with law enforcement and health department and Member Sager, there was the understanding that amendment was going to change. And so we're going to be focusing on what's called the Draft Evolving Amendment to the Public Health Ordinance, and I have a revision date of 6/15/2026. That was included in the packet, and for those present, I provided you a hard copy.
So number 2 was the original on the table. I'm just looking at when we're pulling up. So this is what we're going to talk about. I know the thing was always going to be evolving. We knew that. And if
This is one suggestion that we received. There's going to be, right. And I will make sure that prior to
because this is the evolved and this is the other one.
Prior to any further conversation and prior hopefully to the committee of the whole, we will get you the recommendations that were made and then kind of the culmination of all of the discussions at the 3 committees as to what should be included. So we'll have a robust discussion at the committee of the whole about what it ultimately will look like on Tuesday. That's what I kind of envision, yay? Okay. So again.
Can I just say one thing, just one more word of clarification. So what is on 30-day review, you use a very strong word, is what Dr. Sager hates.
I did use a strong word, and I'm not
scolding you for it.
I don't think I was wrong.
But it did not include the recommendations that
It
Dr.
did, no,
said, right?
it's a
So,
30-day
The 30-day review
amendment
is what we
review
said we
was what I presented to Public Health, which was what we discussed thereafter when we had our board meeting committee of the whole,
and
right?
that's what we know we said we would make amendments to it.
Absolutely.
That's what this period is for.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So, Mr. Sagar, can I give you the floor and can you kind of talk about your concerns?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. First is, I don't hate anything. You know, I'm open to whatever we can do. I simply appreciate first the fact that the discussion is taking place. I think it's appropriate. We've had a broad call from people to review this area of concern on their behalf, and I think it's appropriate for us to do that. I have taken, frankly, just my experience and my background in terms of writing an animal control ordinance for the city of Woodstock, and also my work with the state fairs over several years. And I was responsible for writing rules and regulations associated with animal health welfare at the 2 state fairs. And I did that in concert, recognizing that there are 2 underlying documents that exist out there. One is Humane Care Act of the federal government, and the second is the Animal Welfare Act and requirements of the state of Illinois. So those things are out there, and you have to kind of conform with those. And my effort was simply to try to find a balance, and let me try to explain that. The first is the fact that certainly we want to protect animals from inappropriate abuse. We all would acknowledge that that is the underlying goal here. And yet at the same time, as we do with the state fairs, the balance has to be that there are many individuals who care deeply for animals and have a very strong emotional perspective that will sometimes come forward and express concern on the manner in which animals are treated or cared for at various activities, various events, various things that are out there in the public arena in terms of entertainment. And that's understandable because a lot of people don't come from that animal husbandry background or don't understand the way animals are cared for. I have to say that when you're looking at animal husbandry, that is the animal livestock industry, agricultural livestock production industry out there, when you're looking at sanctioned rodeos, those animals are, in fact, the livelihood of people. And so farmers are going to be treating their animals very, very well, nurturing those animals so that they can either provide quality meat for the marketplace or they can produce progeny, which are going to provide either the ability to grow their own herd or put on the marketplace so that others can take advantage of proper breeding and nurturing. And so they look at these animals as a part of their business, and they're not going to jeopardize their business in any way, shape, or form by treating animals inappropriately or mistreating them. And so I think we have to kind of keep that in mind, and we have to help to educate people about that, and we also have to make sure that we're finding that proper balance. So having said all that, I'm going to say that another thing that kind of happened here was the original document that I had prepared, that I think all of you saw out there, was distributed, was kind of inclusive to the areas or the categories that we think about at the state fairs in terms of what are the general areas or topics of abuse that people seem to be concerned about, and that we would all agree are things that even in animal husbandry, in sanctioned rodeos, in fairs, we would not do. We just don't do, and frankly, we don't put up with it. When it comes to fairs, there are rules and regulations, and the Bureau of County Fairs and Racing in the state of Illinois, under the Department of Agriculture, is responsible for ensuring that these types of things are not being done at fairs or in racing, because they are considered to be abusive. And so there are standards that exist out there. And if county fairs are not following these guidelines, then they're going to lose their funding from the states, called matching funds, from racing, actually, is where those funds come from. And the state provides those to county fairs for the use in premiums, offering monies or prize monies to the exhibitors. Those will be removed if things are not done in a proper manner. And so there is a lot of oversight that takes place there. Sanctioned rodeos are not even oversighted by the federal government. They're excluded in the Humane Care Act, and the reason they're excluded is because there are so many rules and regulations that sanctioned rodeos have to follow. There are over 60 some odd animal welfare rules out there, and that's closely governed in that sanctioning process. Having said all of that, my goal here is to find middle ground. There's something here that I think we can do to kind of provide a basic acknowledgement that certain things are not appropriate. I am not looking, and I emphasize this very strongly, I am not looking that whatever we are proposing here is applied by the Public Health Department or by the Sheriff's Department to McHenry County animal husbandry or agricultural production in McHenry County. Not applying. Doesn't apply. They're not affected by this, in my mind. Second thing is that we need to exempt the county fair for what I just put out there. There are already plenty of oversights in that. That activity doesn't occur at county fairs. And so I don't think we need to put them in a position of concern that they're going to be inspected for this any more than, frankly, they already are. And the same thing with sanctioned rodeos. Sanctioned rodeos that are at the county fair or in other locations, maybe within the county, shouldn't be a concern because they already have to follow significant regulations and are already oversighted. So I'm looking at what I would refer to as entertainment events that don't, fall under those other categories of a county fair, an exposition of animals, which the county fair is, or sanctioned rodeos, or agriculture production. But we are looking at entertainment venues, entertainment organized events in which there doesn't seem to be any other oversight. So that's what I was trying to do, and I was trying to apply the same 5 areas of concern. I'm going to grant and just kind of let go of some things because I know that this has been a big part of the concern. First off, as it was originally put out there, it was equine and bovine, horses and cattle. Well, we have a lot more animals involved in animal events than that. We've got sheep, and we've got goats, and we've got hogs, and we've got, we have other things that are out there. Sometimes frankly, it's llamas. We have llamas out there. So there's all kinds of things that are out there, and I don't think we should be identifying a species. I think whatever we do should be across the board and apply to all species of animals. 1. The second thing is some of the general categories, which I forwarded, which I would consider in any others. Maybe we don't want to approach those, and I'm fine with that. I had suggested, for example, of course, tailing remains. The use of any given animal in more than 2 activities in a given event, that's hard to oversight. I'm willing to let that one go. I think the sanctioned rodeos, they know that. They don't do those types of things. But I think that needs to be taken out of any of our language. Any activity which could result in joint separation or the amputation of any body parts. I know that producers are concerned if it gets into that section because sometimes things just happen. Nobody's intent It just happens. And I get that, but we don't want to have anything that purposefully leads to that. So, but I understand, let's take that out. Kicking, facial striking, hitting, prodding by means of sharp or electrified instruments or general beating of animals, I get it. Those are hard things to define, but honestly, I have seen some instances where they have taken sharp prods and put it in the face of an animal with the danger of, hitting an eye or something like that. I've seen them prod in the flank. I've seen them with sharp instruments. Electrified prods, a little bit different, but they can be significant in some circumstances and be problematic. I'm going to say, okay, take that out. If that's of concern to too many people, then take that part out. Maybe gentle beating of animals or something, but kicking in the face, prodding in the face, those things I think are important. And finally, the use of drugs or external body irritants to excite or energize animal behavior and event activities. That's absolutely, totally prohibited at fairs, and I think they should be prohibited in other areas. That's just not something you do. And there are lists of all of these chemicals. If you need that, they're listed in the fair regulations for the state, and so it's out there. It's hard to oversight. I acknowledge that. But I do think that there is flexibility on what we include there. Having said all that, again, I believe finally that the animal husbandry, McHenry County Fair, and sanctioned rodeos in McHenry County need to be exempted, and I will argue for that. If we can't put that in there, then I'm going to have a problem with that. But otherwise, I'm willing to work with things as I've explained, and I'm sorry for yapping on that too much.
Brian,
My apologies, Chair.
Brian, clarify for me, the sanctioned rodeos, who is the regulatory authority? Who manages all of that? Is that the Department of Ag, or is that a different, who does that?
Generally, the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, that's what I wanted. Thanks.
Thank you for asking that. That was my question mark too.
Yeah, I didn't know. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sagar? I think that was pretty clear. And keeping on that theme, do my Farm Bureau people kind of want to follow suit on that? I think that makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to invite you to kind of come up here, introduce yourselves.
Dan Volkers, service the McHenry County Farm Bureau Manager. It's been my honor to serve in that capacity for a couple decades and been with Farm Bureau for over 25 years. I have the honor of representing currently about 645. We gained a couple since I wrote this letter a day ago, but anyway, 645 farm families in the county. Agriculture remains a significant business for McHenry County. As much as I love our board of directors on different policies and issues, when this was brought to them at their June meeting, they even felt like we needed people that knew more about the industry than the people that were sitting in the room. So then we did bring together a task force of livestock producers to actually carry this conversation. I think that's probably some of the challenges we see currently with the proposed ordinance. It's on 30-day review, is that ultimately I think that farmer group needed to be at the ground table. When we did the agritourism task force, we dealt with different policies and figuring out how to deal with that from the health department to zoning to everything else to come up with a package to address agritourism. This one, I felt like we were working from behind and trying to address this quickly. So that is where the Farm Bureau, hopefully you received an email with a copy of the letter that we sent out last night, but I also did bring hard copies if anybody needs one. But we needed, in our minds, with the task force and the Farm Bureau board that quickly reviewed this, was that we need to take a step back, look at this and work in partnership to address any issues We did put together 6 points of concern.
I'm sorry, can I get a hard copy?
Yeah, I would give it to everybody because I don't have one yet either. And please,
I'm
can you
sorry
also?
to interrupt you, I just left
Yep,
my
no
paper at
problem.
home and I can't pull it up easily.
This is it, right?
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Came out just last night, so thank you. So we were able to get this in front of our board of directors and the committee who came together. Unfortunately, we did not have time to have our own legal attorneys review it, which I typically like to do before submitting that to the county, but we felt that this matter was important enough to move forward and getting this in front of you, so.
There's time for that yet too.
Yeah, we felt that this was a big enough issue for our members. It's something that's generating phone calls and concerns and emails from our membership. The other issue I'll address this because I know it's on the table here. The Farm Bureau suggestion came from our board meeting and our Illinois Farm Bureau staff and legal attorneys. And the amendment was that this would be the only language that they were looking at. And the main word that they wanted in there was then, to show a secondary action. So they felt that tailing without having the transition word there saying then that they were doing the secondary action was key to that language. If anything like that would be included in the ordinance. So
I would concur with that.
So anyway, we wanted to make clarity there because people may need to use a tail to provide oxytocin for a cow to let down milk, or they may need to use a tail to get them to go into a chute or up into a trailer. So those are things that we want to make sure are clear.
Mr. Kunkel?
Yep. So, not to preempt all you have, but if we have this exemption of animal husbandry, would that make the Farm Bureau comfortable with what we put out here?
I think at this point in time, we're asking for everybody to step back and give us an opportunity to work with the group collectively to come up with some.
Even for the stuff that's really in our purview, which is the entertainment aspect, entertainment and enforcement of our own rules and ordinances. But you want to be a part of even that.
We'd like to be part of that discussion, helping develop the policy with the livestock producers.
And do my favorite part, that when I was at your meeting, you said there was not a single person in that room that believed that detailing was anything but inhumane.
Right, and that is correct. So the Farm Bureau suggested language was trying to address that issue, but we wanted clarity if that particular piece is included.
Mr. Kunkel?
Okay, but this is still, so I agree with having everybody part of the process, that's no problem. Because there's a lot to this. Something as simple as rolls on a spur, myself and several other riders who work with cutting horses, we use rolls. Now, we use very large rolls without sharp points because it is just a matter of the horses are so sensitive. I think my horse thinks before I do, but that's how that works. But according to the letter of Dr. Saugers, which I really appreciate, and I like what he's done, short of a few little items like this, would have to have some refinement in the actual print because everybody I know from hunter jumpers to cattlemen use rolls and use spurs. The bad ones are the tiny ones with the fierce points, but all of that's something that could be addressed, but would have to be addressed to a specific point, because the way this is written, they are in fact a prodding object to this.
See, you're adding interpretation already.
To me, and again, introduce.
Dan Zeller, former president of the Farm Bureau,
That was my point to say, if husbandry is completely out of the scope, does that help exonerate you guys from this? But if you want to be part of the process, that's absolutely wonderful.
The problem we have is that, thank goodness we got Brian here today. What happens with this board now through this ordinance is one thing. But the next word that comes along, we get farther removed from agriculture as every generation comes along. And the next one could come in and take this rule and come, just as you just did, say, well, I think that what they do about this is wrong. So we need to add that. We're opening a can of worms. The wheel's already been invented through the Department of Agriculture and the Sanctioned Rodeo Association.
Right.
It just.
And I agree with you actually 100%. I am the one who doesn't. Like I said, I appreciate what he's written here. I appreciate the meaning of that. But I believe this bridge being crossed starts to take away from your end, especially without that hard line exemption on your side.
Ms. Van Hoff? I'm sorry, Ms. Van Hoff, then Ms. Campbell.
So, yeah, so I'm really concerned about the entertainment portion of that. I appreciate that, you know, the Farm Bureau would like to come and help us come up with something that is comprehensive, that, you know, cares for the animals. And I appreciate that you already have federal and state statutes that govern what you do. That's not my concern. My concern is that when I have someone coming before the board saying that they're violating basic rules like not having a vet there, and that they're doing things that are really dangerous, that is my concern. So I think we can work together and come out with something that would, you know, be good for everybody. But if we're not enforcing the laws that are already in place, we need to take a hard look at that.
And Kevin is going to address that in a minute. Kevin's going to address that in a minute. Let's finish asking questions. Ms. Campbell.
I was just wondering, since I think we kind of derailed what you were trying to do, which is go through your presentation about what your concerns were and bring that to the table. We're starting to get into smaller sections of this, and I feel like we're piecemealing, whereas we haven't heard from Dan yet. And I do think it's important to be good partners. And I understand Mr. Ziller's concern, because we do make decisions on this board, we just did, that future boards won't know why we did it, and it will become a precedent for other decisions going forward without really understanding why we were there in the first place. And to just go one step further, I think the idea to keep moving with the discussion wasn't unaware completely of where you were brought into the process. I think the decision to move forward this month was not to race to a decision, because we felt we had that tool of pulling it in July, if we didn't get where everybody wanted to be. So I want to make sure that we're approaching this with complete openness about where we end up, and I'm not concerned. I think we want to get this under control for the other part of it, but we have to get the whole thing right. So if we don't get there by our July meeting, we don't get there. Right. We pull it and we keep moving forward.
And I had explained, thank you for that. And I had explained one of the reasons that, you know, we may have appeared to have moved in haste is because, again, we're getting to that period of time where many of the permits for many of our entertainment events will be coming forward. And it may have been new, and I apologize for that, to our Farm Bureau members. It is not new to the board. We have been dealing with this issue for quite some time, right? I mean, Brian will tell you that he had been talking, as had Ms. Krieger, you know, bringing some things forward to the PED committee as well. So it's really not new to us. And Dan, she's right. Go back to your presentation, please.
No, it's fine. Hopefully everybody has a hard copy now, the wanted one. Mr. Sager obviously already addressed, there is existing state statute that is in place, and we did list those for you. We also feel that from the Farm Bureau perspective, that state and federal guidelines for livestock is a better channel than having different regulations from county to county. Many of our producers travel to adjoining counties to show and exhibit animals. Having a county patchwork of policies is creating another layer difficulty with that. As already mentioned by Brian regarding the sanctioned rodeos, and that they already have their own rules established. We also, in our discussions with the Farm Bureau Board and the group that we put together, the task force, discussed that there may be other possibilities of addressing this through zoning and fines. Let's see, I think the other thing that we wanted to highlight, we did have some concerns on how it would be enforced, or how that would put public health servants or the sheriff's department or others into these events, and how that would be handled. We don't have the answers to that. I don't want to speak on their behalf. We just had a general
They're going to
concern.
speak on their behalf later.
Yep, that'd be great. So anyway, just as a group, that was a concern that came up in our boardroom, because we do realize that some of these events are large, and crowds can be sometimes difficult. I think that is the main point, and what Mr. Ziller mentioned already was just that when we do open the door, there seems to be the opportunity for more and more language to be added to any policies. So those were the primary concerns, but my opening comments, I think, are the most important, that we really want to make sure that we bring all those collective groups together. Like I said, our Farm Bureau Board felt that it was best placed with our livestock people. There's obviously other people that are impacted, and we definitely do not represent the equine industry as a whole, and they need to be at the table too.
Any other, Mr. Kunkel?
I just would like to hear about the ordinance code portion of this.
Yes, we're gonna get there. Brian, do you have any questions?
Not at this point. I think I've said enough for a while.
Ms. Krieger, at this point, do you have any questions?
No, I'm waiting to hear it in its totality.
So,
and thank you. I did receive that statement from the Farmers Bureau, so thank you.
Okay, so moving on, I'm going to go to my state's attorney's office. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. And just if you could address some of the issues that you brought forward at our first original meeting as to why now we have, we're dealing with the animal control ordinance as opposed to just the TUP portion of our ordinances, and then just give some additional background. We obviously always contact our state's attorneys. They are our legal advisors. We always want to make sure that what we're doing when it comes to passing an ordinance, that we are consulting. So I turn the floor over to you. Please, both Dans, Dan 1 and Dan 2, Dan 1 and Dan 2, maybe I should do it that way. Please feel free, again, I'm gonna ask, I wanna recognize, so raise hand, but if you have questions as Kev's going through this, please acknowledge and we'll answer.
Okay, so this came to our office with the request that we look into what we could do in terms of formulating an ordinance, one that we'd be able to defend. So looking at Boone County, which has come before us, you may be familiar that they dealt with this, I think, over the past couple of years. That was a good starting point for us. An ordinance of this type naturally implicates constitutional issues. So from our perspective, we want to be able to draft an ordinance that we can defend. And within that constitutional framework, the main issue that's implicated is an equal protection challenge. And that's by a particular protected group that would say that the ordinance has an impact on me and it's essentially targeting me. So the ordinance needs to be drafted in a way so that we're not doing that to make it the most defensible. I don't want to get too technical, but it's not to say that an ordinance that regulates a protected group can't be constitutional, but it's much harder to defend. The level at which a court would look at it is an elevated level. We want to keep the ordinance on the very bottom rung of that ladder, so to speak, on a rational basis test, which really a court would look at the ordinance and say, just on its face. Now, and this is why it's important when we start talking about exemptions, because a court is going to look just at the four corners of the ordinance in the document and say, as I look through this document, are any of those protected groups implicated by the words in the ordinance? So if it doesn't do that, then it's under rational basis. And rational basis is Can they regulate in this area? Is this a rational way to do it? Is there an interest they're trying to protect? In this particular case, it's the safety and health of animals. Clearly would meet a rational basis test. The concern for us is how we do it in a way to keep the ordinance neutral. And I authored an opinion on this. I don't want to get into the specifics of it. I'm more than happy to share that with you. I know administration has it. We can share that with you just because that implicates some attorney-client privilege there. I don't want to disclose it in this meeting. But I will say that that is our starting point, trying to create what we call a facially neutral ordinance. So then we look at Boone County and we say, okay, Boone County dealt with this. How did they deal with it? And they took kind of a two-step approach, which is what we've talked about. They regulate, I guess what you could call the logistics of the event in the zoning ordinance, which we do through a temporary use permit. And I would recommend that it not be strictly a rodeo because our goal is really broader than a rodeo. It's really any animal entertainment event. That's a broad definition of these events where these animals could be harmed. So that was our initial suggestion, that it be categorized as an animal entertainment event. And deal with the logistical issues of the rodeo in terms of number of runs, vet, those types of issues in that portion of the code, in the zoning ordinance there. And it's not to say that there won't be some interconnectivity, but that and those regulations really are on the permit holder. And when you look at it, and then you take a step back and you think, okay, well, if I'm running one of these events, I can sanction the permit holder for something bad that happens, but how do I go after the individual who engages in the conduct? Who might be the rider, somebody who's hired for the day who comes in, you know, a participant. We really need a two-step approach. We need something that stands alone for which we can go after this individual who actually engaged in the conduct, but then also have a way to go after the permit holder. And when you look at the state statute, we talk about the Humane Care for Animals Act and another statute that deals with it. Those are either classified as misdemeanor or felony offenses. Those require a very high burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, oftentimes mental states. So the suggestion here is to create some regulations in the Public Health Ordinance on a local level that would allow us to go after individuals that engage in this conduct where we might not otherwise be able to meet our burden of proof on a felony or misdemeanor charge. Essentially to give animal control and the sheriff's office and our office another tool in our belt to be able to prosecute individuals that engage in this. Understanding that we want to be able to have a charge that is appropriate for the type of offense and something that we can prosecute confidently knowing that we can convict the person of it and then have ramifications on the permit side of it for the individual that engaged in the event. I will say with respect to ultimately what you decide in terms of how you regulate these events, our office's standpoint is that's largely a legislative matter, not something that we would really opine on in terms of the specifics unless we see it start to venture into an area that would give us concern in terms of the enforceability or whether the statute would be defensible. I do think the main point, though, that I want to bring up is the exceptions. The exceptions on their face create cause for concern that you're moving away from a facially neutral statute. When you start saying, okay, this is not allowed, and then you start exempting other groups, it starts looking more like you're narrowing in on somebody else. I will say that I reviewed the federal statute. The federal statute does not speak specifically to sanctioned rodeos. They are exempted as rodeos as an exhibitor in the federal statute. So I think to the extent that any of these groups that are mentioned do not engage in this conduct, there should be no reason why they need to be exempted if they don't otherwise engage in it. I would say just keep that in mind as you go through, keeping it facially neutral in terms of its application.
And I think the fear, I'm going to respond a little bit, I think the fear from those who are concerned is that that is the slippery slope, right? Is that it even though it is facially neutral, it could potentially be used by very specific organizations to target the other side, right? So as much as we're making sure we're not targeting this group, there is fear from the others that they will be targeted by the entities that are advocating for a humane animal ordinance. So just so you understand that.
Yeah, and I think in terms of crafting your regulations, the better approach is to regulate in a way where everybody can comply rather than to regulate extremely strictly and then exempt people out. from that, if that makes sense.
So,
Ms. Van Hoff?
so then, Kevin, are you saying that we could come up with something that we think would work, that is fair, but we could exempt, for instance, the Farm Bureau out?
So I'm counseling against that.
Okay.
I know that animal husbandry or good animal husbandry has been brought up. That is a specific exemption from the state statute.
Okay.
So anything beyond that, I think should give pause. Is a little concerning because then it looks more like the statute is less broad and it's going in one specific direction towards a specific group or activity.
Okay, so it does not matter that they already have state and federal guidelines that.
Right, so my suggestion would be to regulate in a way where it's either consistent with those state and federal guidelines or they can otherwise comply. I mean, generally everybody would agree that nobody wants to hurt an animal. And that's really what this regulation is here. And to the extent that nobody is engaging in this or needs to engage in it, then there really isn't a reason for an exemption.
So as long as we're consistent with what state and federal laws say in what we come up with, it should be okay. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't necessarily think you need to be consistent with state and federal law, but they set at least an outer boundary. If you want to regulate more strictly, that would be okay in terms of how you define these things and how you regulate, especially the temporary use permit. But I think
Excuse me, Dina, can you put your phone on mute?
Right.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I mean, Steve. Is it Brian? Oh.
The box is blue.
Okay,
My phone's muted.
thank you.
So I think the concern is if you craft a regulation and then you say, well, we're going to exempt the Farm Bureau, we're going to exempt sanctioned rodeos. You know, initially in my mind, why do you treat a sanctioned rodeo any differently than another rodeo? And then obviously good animal husbandry, that is permissible. That's in the state law. I have no concern with that. But a court would look at that and say, this is looking less facially neutral to me. Why are these two groups treated differently? Why aren't they subject to this regulation? So
that's
broader
why it would
regulation.
help to get input from.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Mr. Kunkel, Mr. Sagar, you also have a question? Did I see your hand up?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, but I'll get to it. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Kunkel first and then Mr. Sagar, please.
I understand your burden to carry to make this actually happen. But general law enforcement has a burden too, also to actually enforce these things to happen and all that. That all becomes suspect. But I do know this with the facial neutral and us opening Pandora's box here, it throws such a broad net that we are going to trap people in agriculture, we're going to trap other people, and we're going to leave the door wide open for additional comments and commands to the whole thing. As I said, this thing goes all the way down to the tiny rolls on your spurs. This has a lot of ramifications in the fact that we open the box. Now, the fact that we already have state and federal regulation on all of this, and if you have to do and you have to put something forward, I like the fact of the ordinances as Brian is putting forward in an ordinance form based on our entertainment, so that when someone comes forward to do any kind of animal entertainment, then that is specific to this area, nothing else. I like that fact. It also gives a little more tooth, or gives us some room for when a sheriff's officer has to come there, we don't have to argue with it. They write a citation and say, you are fined, and the fine is whatever level we determine. I like all of those things. But anything else that we get into here, this stuff's been done for years. It's the reason the Equine Act even evolved to that point, because everybody tried to make more and more burdensome rules. Finally, the federal government stepped in for that. I don't think that anybody needs to step in any harder or any farther, especially in McHenry County, because ag is a big portion of our lifestyle. I don't know. I think, again, this is a bridge too far, other than ordinances specific to animal entertainment.
Thank you. I appreciate. So, Mr. Sagar, Mr. Zimmer, Mr. Shorten.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My position is distinctly different than Kevin's, and we've talked about this, and I've had conversations with Kyle about this as well. I think it's an opportunity for us locally to reinforce what is being said by the federal government, what is being said by the state government, and that is to exempt animal husbandry, livestock production totally. I think that we need to exempt sanctioned rodeos and shows. I think that's absolute. Federal government does it. I think we reinforce that in our position, and we need to exempt the county fair. And the reason we exempt the county fair is because they already fall under the animal husbandry, and that's what this is. But I think we just need to be more specific. I don't want our enforcement people to feel like they have to be obligated to go to the county fair and to look around to ensure that these things are taking place, because that's already being done. It becomes redundant, and I just don't think we need to do that. So I believe that it is appropriate. I understand, and I acknowledge, and I appreciate dramatically Kevin's commentary with regards to going to court. I wish to think, and I'm going to be honest and say I've been disappointed in the past that the court is not quite as what I believe to be thoughtful and logical or rational in their position. I haven't always been pleased with that. But that's the state attorney's responsibility then. If our board believes this is a rational approach to be taken, and these three exemptions are appropriate and will provide the protection against expansion of regulation into broader areas, then I think that that's something that we say. And as a board, we set the policy, and then the state's attorney's office, defends that. And then we will see what happens in court with the hope, the sincere hope, that the court will react rationally. Again, I haven't always believed that, but that's the hope that we have. So that's kind of my thought, my position. I think we need to exempt. I am open to the rewording of what I have there suggested. I'm okay with that, but I still think those three exemptions must exist in whatever we put forward. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And again, that's why this discussion will be at 3 committees, because as we all know, when we deal with these issues that are difficult and very complicated, there is no right, there is no wrong, there is just what we decide to put on the table and enforce. And the good news is, if it needs to be changed, it can be changed, as the gentlemen also are somewhat afraid of. So just be aware. You need to have full information, and that's the whole point of this committee meeting and the discussion today. Dan, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, I have a couple of things. I'm hung up on why we think we're targeting one group, because the American cowboy comes in every shape, size, and color in this country and can participate in any rodeo that he wants to. I don't know where we're coming up that we're picking on. I don't even know who we're picking on and why we think we're picking on one person. Another issue that's come up in all of our discussions with this, and Mrs. Van Hoff brought it up, there are vets being threatened if they go to these rodeos to make sure these animals are being taken care of.
On social media, you're referencing.
Pardon?
On social media, you're referencing. There's actual documentation on social media that these veterans are being called out when they attend an event.
Yeah,
Yes, that's just clarifying, sir. Thank
because
you.
their livelihoods are being threatened. So you might have the solution to your problem right there, because it says right in your permit process, there has to be one there. I don't understand, Brian keeps bringing it up, the rules already exist. You have the ability to enforce them. When you're notified that these problems are happening. And I don't know. I just don't understand why we're trying to reinvent the wheel.
Can I ask that, Kevin, can you elaborate a little bit why it is, I'm going to say better. Don't put a lot of definition behind that. Why many local units of government choose to have a local ordinance in place dealing with issues that are already covered in state statute?
So from our standpoint, in the State Attorney's Office, it's a lower burden of proof option in terms of enforcement. That's why we would want it. A lot of your state statutes, there's a corresponding ordinance type of violation. The reason for that is prosecutors and police officers charge based upon various different reasons. It could be the strength of the case, could be the evidence and availability of witnesses. It gives us another option in terms of finding something that allows us to hold somebody accountable so that we can have the corresponding impact on the temporary use permit. That's why we're doing it. And that's not to say that if you decided that you don't want anything in the public health ordinance, there's still stuff out there that regulates it. It's the state law and the federal statute. But those cases are difficult. I know that our office just prosecuted some individuals out of an event last year. I think they were charged with felonies. I think they ultimately pled guilty to misdemeanor charges. So our office can attempt to seek convictions on those, but not every case may warrant a felony or misdemeanor charge, but it may be something that warrants action on a permit. So it gives us another avenue to hold individuals accountable.
And again, that's the job of our state's attorney, is to give us all the information so you know what you're doing when you make those decisions. Dan, the floor is still yours, sir.
One last comment. If you are bent on coming up with some kind of a rule, I would suggest that you look at the county affairs rules as a local ordinance, because it says everything you're trying to say. And now you haven't done it. You're using somebody else's rules, along with the state and federal rules.
Appreciate that. Good direction. We will follow up on that. Mr. Shorten.
So, first what I want to ask or clarify what it sounds like it's been answered, but I'll make sure I'm fully clear. All these issues that have been addressed, that folks that have come before the board, the tailing and the mistreatment of animals, these things are already illegal. Correct.
Under the Humane Care for Animals Act? Probably, yes.
So.
Now that was a real good attorney answer. Probably, yeah.
They are.
They are.
Not proven in court, but they are.
So and I'm all for local control if I haven't made myself clear on that. But I'm just looking at this from a layer perspective. Because you can have all the rules in the world, but if you don't have enforcement, and enforcement that is compelling enough that the people that would otherwise do bad things in general are not detailed from that, then I don't know what we're accomplishing. I appreciate the comment from the Farm Bureau, and I do think they need to be more involved in the conversation. I think they're bringing relevant items to the conversation. I know that there's been an urgency to this because of the time of the year that we are in, but also we need to. And one of the things that I appreciate that we do here that I wish the state would do occasionally would be to slow walk these things and make sure we do it right if we're going to do them. So from what we're talking about here, doing here, am I hearing that if we do something on a local ordinance level, there's more enforceability? Is that?
I wouldn't say there's more enforceability. It's easier to prove in court.
Ease of enforceability.
Correct.
Okay. I just need to process through all these things to make sure that I understand where we're coming from and where we're going.
Sure. Yes, Mr. Coker.
So on that point, if you're speeding and we control people, we try to habitually speeding by continuing writing that thing. In fact, the state's coming up with a deal here now. If you get 2 of them over so much, we're trying to slow people down with writing that citation, give it, and you can come to the court. Now you have the ability, if you don't want to pay that check, you have the ability to go to court and plead your case. As Dr. Sauger said, we hope the courts are listening and say, hey, this guy is speeding, and take the officer's word for that. Same thing, once this cow or calf is detailed in this program. Nothing we write here is going to stop that detailing. And to go in as a deputy on limited resources into a crowd of hostile people, put the habeas gravis on that person who detailed, bring them, lock them up, go. Time suck is huge. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but the time suck is huge. But then the burden of proof falls on us to show the actual detail. Luckily, there's lots of that on YouTube. But you have to show that specific event. And we have to win in court to make all that done. It's giant. Versus in an ordinance, if it's being done, if it's being observed by, even if we have observers, a citation is written, it's like kind of like that speeding ticket. You give it to them. If you make that fine high enough and painful enough to these organizations, we're trying to control their behavior through that. Rather than throw this giant net that catches everybody who's doing animal husbandry or riding a horse, rather than try and throw that giant net, I understand it is more specific to that, but something in that line seems to make more sense. Even in the ordinances that we already have, they can be enforced in that way. Somehow there has to be a monetary component for these entertainment things and a fine component to make them come in line. We can write here on paper and write here on paper and make everybody more and more mad, but you still have to give them this pain to make them stop.
And I think that's a great little segue. So what I was going to do next, unless there were specific questions for Kevin, Ms. Campbell?
So you were talking about, right now, rodeos, not sanctioned rodeos, but rodeos and good animal husbandry is exempted from federal law.
So all rodeos.
All, right, I'm saying not sanctioned, but
Correct.
all rodeos. Okay.
Yeah, they're excluded from the definition of an exhibitor in the federal law.
Okay, so they're already exempt. So I think what Brian was getting at is saying sanctioned rodeos, that would protect that group or whatever, but they're not, they're more broad by federal law. Any event can,
Can I speak to the sanctioned rodeo issue?
Yeah.
Because that's a little
go ahead.
concerning. Let's say I want to engage in a rodeo and I go to the sanctioning board and I can't get sanctioned. So now I'm at the whim of the sanctioning board as to whether I get to avail myself of an exemption in the ordinance. That's why it's concerning. It's taking the ability to regulate and allowing somebody else to dictate whether somebody is subject to our ordinance or not. In theory, whether it's a sanctioned rodeo, a regular rodeo, no rodeo should be engaging in animal abuse, period, across the board. I understand why we're talking about the sanctioned rodeos, because on a conceptual level, they do it the right way. They have a structured system. So to the extent that we want to focus on the sanctioned rodeos, we shouldn't be focusing on the fact that they're sanctioned. We should be focusing on the system they use and taking parts of that and using that to give our guidance for how we're going to regulate these. Does that make sense?
yes, no, that makes sense.
Okay.
No, that's perfect, because I was talking about, okay, going in that direction. But having a local ordinance, and I get what Matt is talking about in terms of the permitting and the fees and that sort of thing, but that's what we've been struggling with forever, is getting some kind of fee structure or whatever that's punitive enough to stop this from happening.
So by statute, you're limited to a maximum $1,000 fine.
And they can make that in the event.
But you could set a minimum. You could say for an offense, the minimum fine's $500, $750, whatever the board wanted to, you can set a minimum. You can't
Correct.
exceed the maximum.
Correct.
That's
but
not
they're-
punitive enough.
It's not punitive
Correct, I
enough. They're
understand.
making way more than that. That doesn't matter. And then they come back a year later and we get, what do? We could say that they're exempted forever, but then do you follow that permit to the next property that they go to?
I think you're talking about the public health regulations, but there's also the regulations dealing with the event permit, which would allow us to deny future permits.
No, that's what I am
revoke
talking about.
permits,
I'm talking
correct.
about TUPs.
Correct.
Right, I am.
Right, I would ask that we have something in there, if we don't already, that would allow us to get injunctive relief,
I
to
think
prevent them from having unpermitted rodeos in the future. So there are ways to do it.
Like the too many speeding tickets.
And, right, and I just so you know, my thought process after this is to have Adam and the sheriff and Public Health come up here and talk to you kind of about what happens, process, blah, and you can ask those questions too. But that's, that's not.
Because we have had those conversations.
That's not to stop
We've
questions.
been doing that in PED too, about how do we do
Right.
that, so, right, okay.
More?
I think it'll be more clear as we go,
Okay.
so we can, that's nice.
Brian, did you have a question, or do you want to wait
Yeah,
until okay.
I do have a question for Kevin. Kevin, I know that $1,000 is kind of the maximum, but is that per occurrence or is that per event, as it were? I mean, let's use tailing as an example. Let's say we have 6 issues of tailing in one entertainment event, right? So does that producer that produces that event, are they going to be fined a maximum of $1,000 for the event, or is it $6,000 because there were 6 occurrences?
We would charge them separately as 6 occurrences.
Perfect, thank you. That's what I assumed, but I wasn't sure. Thank you.
There's multiple reasons for that. One, in theory, every occurrence is a violation, but 2, to the extent that any one of those failed in court, you would want to have additional counts, so to speak, so that you had additional opportunities to gain a conviction.
Right, thank you so much.
Did you have a question, Michael, or you're just?
So, yes, I have a question, sorry. So if there's multiple violations that are brought to court, there's backup, but also is the likelihood that they're combined into one single fine?
No, they would be treated separately, like separate counts of a criminal complaint.
Okay.
Separate charges,
Okay.
individual events.
Yeah.
Okay, can I ask you guys just to come up to be prepped, Adam, Melissa, as well as the sheriff?
And just real quickly.
And I had
So-
real quick after. Just
Well, no,
Wait, no, Dan actually was first, so I'm gonna let him, and then, sorry, and then I'm gonna let Carolyn, and then I'll ask Ms. Van Hoff.
And that's
So
really nice.
Dan, please.
That is. So, going on your, Mr. Kunkel's deal with the fine. So, you have this tailing thing that happened, you got one fine there. If there's not a vet there, that should be the biggest fine of the whole deal. And you just continue on with it, where there's too many people there. Everything that is being done wrong needs to be a separate penalty, and just collect the money. That's what it's all about.
So my only thought is, in that penalty, in that fine, whatever, is there a criminal component? Where does it, at what point, I think part of this moving it over as an ordinance was to bring in that criminal component, because at the federal level, it can be either a misdemeanor or a felony, and right now, we're just finding them. And so, is there within the TUP that ability, or it would have to go then through the federal law that you would be challenging them on?
The violation of the temporary use permit wouldn't be criminal in nature. Ordinance violations are what's classified as quasi-criminal. They're a little bit civil, a little bit criminal, but that would deal strictly with the ramifications on the license, the event permit. And then also a fine could be levied as part of that process. But in terms of the individual that actually engages in the conduct that hurts the animal, this gives us another opportunity to charge them at the ordinance level. Or the misdemeanor level, or the felony level if it, if the charge is, if the facts warrant that.
Okay, right, and then I'll let it go for there.
Much like you would have with disorderly conduct. That's a common statute where there's a state statute, but it's often charged on the local level at the discretion of the deputy or the local police officer, given the facts and circumstances as they exist on scene.
Ms. Van Hoff?
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here, Melissa, because I think this question really would be something that you can answer. I know that when you have an event, that sometimes there are random inspections by the health department, especially if there's food being served and that kind of thing, where they might just kind of show up to make sure that everybody's licensed and doing it. Does that kind of thing happen at rodeos?
I don't believe, well, oh, you mean for, wait, for the food side or for the animal side? The food side, yes. Yes, for the food side.
Okay, so, but not necessarily for the animal side, but
No.
you do kind of show up if there's food being served. So we should get them to sell food, right?
If
Okay,
there's a
thank you.
complaint, then we would be
Okay.
likely working with the sheriff's office to have a deputy escort us out to the event to follow up on the complaint.
Okay, thanks.
So what I kind of sort of had in mind, sort of, is if we could explain from the TUP, the permitting process, exactly how that works, et cetera, and then how the two of you respond to any type of complaint, inspection, call, how that works, and then how you kind of coordinate those activities, because health department would come out, but obviously law enforcement would also be part of that response, yay? Okay, so,
Yeah.
why, and then, again, I'm gonna ask if you have questions, Farm Bureau as well, if you have questions, please raise your hand and we'll try and get through all of this. So Adam, why don't you start?
So, and I'll lay out the application process based on our rules that are being proposed. So they're going before PED committee this coming Tuesday. So with that, temporary uses for rodeos specifically would require application 60 days in advance of the event date. At that date, 60 days out, they need to have a complete application. So the site plan that shows parking, where the trailers are gonna be, everything coordinated out about the site in terms of the event spaces, emergency vehicles, where they're gonna be parked, all of it. Once that's complete, then we'll send it to, we'll actually send it with these currently, we'll send it to Sheriff's Office for security plan, but now we'll send it to EMA, and probably still the Sheriff's Office, but we'll send that and then the fire district, because this will now require an IAP, incident action plan, for any rodeo. At that point, not that it takes, the IAP takes a life of its own, but that's when all of the different agencies will really start looking at the event, capacity, what the constraints of the site are, and evaluating. I know Chief Morosky works very closely with Kit in our office in terms of the security plan and what, if it's approved, if it's not approved, what they need more of, and then we'll communicate that out to the applicant. But that's kind of where it starts. Once we get the sign off from EMA on the incident action plan, that means fire district was involved, EMS, Sheriff's Office certainly. We'll also have coordinate inspections. Health will come out, you're the day of the event, right?
We're talking about food.
Just for the food. Just for the food. We'll go out there when the event's setting up. So typically that's gonna be, if an event is on Saturday, that'll be Friday afternoon, something along those lines, when they pretty much have everything cleared out. They start doing some of the marking, some of the stands, whatever they might be doing. So that's kind of the brief nutshell overview of the temporary use process, getting us right up to the doorstep of the event. Questions there, or what did I breeze over?
I actually just want to add, the fairgrounds do not require a temporary use permit. So these are only for properties that are zoned Ag 1, Ag 2.
Yeah, so it's any parcel that's over 5 acres zoned Ag.
Good catch. Now, once the permit is issued, does anyone go out to do an inspection that they are complying? Proceed then, tell them.
Yeah, so typically what we'll do, these events have a few different spaces. One will be a large bleacher set. Sometimes they'll have a deck with a band stage or something like that. Something that's constructed that we can go out there and that's really what we're starting to look at. The next piece, typically we'll meet with the fire district out there on site. So there's at least one in Marengo that we make sure they have a helicopter pad landing zone. They have places to take those people that would otherwise be standing there and move them over to another paddock, like a spare paddock. So we'll walk through the event, where are the bulls going, where's the people, where's the band, where are the food trucks, where's the porta potties, where's your trash, we want to make sure it's located, one per the site plan, but then also so that here's where the EMS is going to be parked, and then they put the garbage cans right in front of it type stuff. So there's some obvious things that need to be curbed, and then there's some other ones that when we bring it up, they walk us through, and it's, hey, that would have been really helpful to put on your site plan, put that on next time.
And we limit now those events to how many individuals? Didn't we just change the ordinance from a large number to a smaller number?
So
For the incident action plans? So with the incident action plans, we did have it at 2,500 people. And then in 2023, we dropped that to 500 people at an event. In this latest revision, we kept it at 500 people and then specifically said for rodeos, a TUP would be, or I'm sorry, an IAP would be required.
Regardless of.
Regardless, yeah.
Do you want to go now and explain what happens or how it happens that we get a call that something is happening and it's illegal or allegedly illegal, or there's an incident that you do get called out for disorderly conduct or whatever, animal is hurt? How does that work?
Well, I guess before we start that, Adam had talked about security plans and how that's vetted.
Thank you.
So my understanding is to get a temporary use permit, you have to have some kind of security on scene. So Chief Moraski will get that information, whether it be the vendor provide their own security. We vet that to make sure that they're a legitimate security agency. If they are not, they hire the sheriff's office to provide the security for the detail, and then we work it out for certain factors, how many officers will be available out there. But I want to remind the county board that our job out there is the safety and security of the event. Our guys aren't looking at the animals. We actually are probably just, if you pay attention to any event, we don't watch the show, we watch the people. So our job is the security of the event. So usually when we get complaints, it's after something has already happened. We'll either get it through, an organization that is paying attention to it, or maybe someone who is at the event who wants to make notification to us. So that's when it usually gets kicked off. It's usually post-incident, and we're reactive to it. So just like any other investigation, well, the on-scene law enforcement officer, whether if we are out there as security, or if we get a call to show up later, we try to meet with that individual and collect the information of what the allegation of the criminal act was. And then from there, it depends, right? I don't want to go over every single circumstance, but the reality is our agency, while we have a lot of individuals that have a good farming background and animal background, that's not our expertise. So that's usually when we'll rely on animal control and the health department and vets and whatever they have at their resources to kind of either confirm or go that route to find out what actually has occurred or the allegation. Now, if it's criminal and it's people, it's easy for us. But when it goes to what we're talking about here today, that's not our expertise in our field. So that's when we'll work with animal control and the health department to try to kind of meander our way through what the allegation is and see if a crime has occurred, and then we'll loop in with the state's attorney's office to try to come up and make sure that charges are completed. So I know that you guys have talked about federal statute. We charge state, so we don't charge anything as a federal crime. We can, but then that goes to a whole different process that I'm going to tell you will not work what we're talking about here today. That's just reality. So when we talk about criminal acts, it's going to be state crimes. That last group, I think there was 5 individuals that we had last year. They're all misdemeanors, and some of them are still going through the court. Some of them have taken blind pleas and all that. So we do criminal charges, but what ends up happening is once we take the complaint, we get the information, we work with the state's attorney's office, animal control, vets, and then it gets assigned to an investigator in efforts to try to locate the individuals that were alleged to have committed the crimes. So sometimes those processes are months, not days, not hours. It's not patrol deputies that are making arrests on scene right then and there. I just want you guys to get the big picture of the amount of effort that goes into conducting these types of investigations.
Ms. Campbell?
And then that is because you're doing it based on state law?
Yeah, we're state charges, yeah.
Yeah, no, so I meant that's what you're using, and you're saying you don't bother with.
That's law enforcement 101, I mean, that's everything that we do.
That's everything you do, so that's based on that.
Mr. Zimmerman, excuse me.
Just for clarification. So a complaint's made, I'm assuming off-duty officers are there if they're your department, or are they on duty?
The details are off-duty details, so there's, the process that's handled is that when the event host, if they're requesting for us to provide law enforcement security, they are paying a detail rate, detail pay, that's a voluntary sign-up sheet that goes up in the patrol division. So these are, they're always on duty, but they're not being taken from the road. It's not county dollars that are paying for it. It is dollars that are paid for by the vendor or the host that is reimbursing the county for the services of law enforcement.
So my next question is if there's a complaint made, you have to pull somebody off the road now to go address that, or do you wait till the event's over?
Well, it depends. So if they're on scene, they still can do law enforcement work. So if they're detailed to do the security, they can do the law enforcement work. We don't have to pull someone off the road to go and respond to it. If there's private security, that's a whole different story. Then that's when we show up and we'll handle that investigation from there.
Any other questions? And how animal control, how do you foresee if we actually pass something like is on the 30-day review, how does that coordinate with law enforcement?
Well, I think they already, I think it's going to depend on, I guess, how the rules are written, right? Right now, we respond based on complaints. So, and, these events, I think, take place primarily on the weekend. And I'm sorry, Mary Ellen is not here. She is our animal control administrator, who is well more versed than I am. But nevertheless, so we
actually took a vacation, which is really good.
So we would dispatch, if there was a complaint, we would dispatch in coordination with a deputy to go to the scene and, potentially launch an investigation as well. But I would have to confirm with Mary Ellen whether or not we've actually gone into an event versus just get the information right now on the outskirts of the event, because safety is going to be a concern for our staff. They're not currently outfitted with any kind of protective gear. We potentially would have to pull someone. So again, we're the whole county in terms of our response for animal control. So we would either have to probably increase staff to address this if it became a dedicated part of the process, so that we don't pull someone from the weekend because we have fewer staff and we're kind of spread thin in order to, respond, or if there was some upfront review of whether or not they had a veterinarian or whatever that is going to look like.
Ms. Campbell?
So you're talking more about like a preventative, so that extra person would be somebody who would be there at the event? Or
That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I think that has not necessarily been determined right now. We operate off of a complaint, right? That is how we respond, is based off of a complaint. If it shifts to, there are requirements on the front end to receive a permit, that there's certain review that has to happen, or on site, then that would look a little different than what we do now.
Because I think right now, we're not, because to your point, it's not prevention. You're not there watching how the animals are being taken care of and stopping it and arresting right there. It is more of a complaint based. And I think that we've had this discussion for a couple of years now. And so now that you guys vet the security detail, or you do it, there's more confidence in your ability out there, not necessarily to shut the thing down, but to have eyes on it. And it's not, because we had that incident a couple of years ago where, didn't we, where there was an issue, right? So in terms of the fact that you're vetting the security details, or your officers are out there themselves, you feel comfortable with that setup as is at this point?
As it relates to what is the safety of the
safety of the event, not the safety of your officers,
yeah,
and the safety of the event. I'm getting the fact that a lot of this with the animals is kind of after the fact, and it's the punitive end of it that will prevent future occurrences, is kind of the way I see it, right? Because you can't be there, it would take a lot of people to be there for everything. That punitive end of it, though, really has to be strong enough to prevent future, but in the meantime, what happens is you're reacting to what happens as a complaint or whatever. Because I think things have been said about if something happens, there's the issue of safety. There's a safety issue if we bring out, you know, somebody from the animal control. Right now, the events, as they are, as long as we're not shutting them down or trying to focus entirely on that animal aspect of it, the events are running, from your perspective, for the safety of personnel, okay at this point.
Yeah, we build our safety plan, or our, you know, the amount of officers that are out there that we feel is safe that they can do law enforcement.
What they need to do.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right, that's what, I'm just concerned about that, because it's been brought up, and it has been a problem in the past. Okay, so, yeah, no, so it just gets to the punitive end, and to make sure that this doesn't keep going on.
Mr. Short, and also the regulations, requiring very specific types of regulations can be detracted.
Do we have any idea as in terms of the number of the events and percentage that use private security versus off-detail officers?
Mike, do you know that one?
Rodeos or all types of special events?
We're kind of focused on the rodeos.
So rodeos, a majority of those, we're hired to do those, and there's, and 2 properties that they usually hire for private security, and then sometimes at the county fairgrounds, it'll be a combination of us and private security, and that's, again, completely separate from how the fair force does it.
And then the other question I had was for Adam. The folks that are pulling the permits, are these the property owners, the organizers, and are they the same people?
Yeah, it's a mix. Property owners are involved almost all the time, but there's a few properties that have operators that, you know, that may be involved as a majority of this property and this property in terms of the rodeo, but then on another one they may be a minority involvement. But yeah, it's typically the owners are represented in some manner or another in conjunction with an operator, if not just the owners.
So would the accountability in an ordinance be split amongst all the applicants? Who holds
The property owner is ultimately responsible, similar to building a house, building a deck, et cetera. It's the property owner is the one that's responsible more than the contractor or something like that, or subcontractor. But in this particular one, you know, depending on the circumstance by which we're going back to them to whether it's a charge or something along those lines, there's going to be evidence of responsibility. You know, the question that came up before in terms of there's 6 citations, we would add a 7th if they didn't have a temporary use, or if they didn't do something else that fit those guidelines, or, you know, item H, item B, whatever. We would go after all of them. So that would be I guess the take. I would look at it case by case.
With separate fines for every offense?
If there's separate charges, they would be coupled with a fine. So yeah, if there's 5 of them, there'd be 5 fines associated with that citation.
Mr. Short wasn't finished, I'm sorry.
And just, no, one other question. The vets, they have to be on site. So on the day of the event, as part of your walkthrough, is there a verification that the vet is actually there?
So our walkthrough predates the event, typically, unless they start them on a Friday. So no, we will get verification from that vet that's listed that, you know, and sometimes they say, no, we're just on call, and that's unfortunate news that we'll deliver. Over the last 3 years, we've had them on site, we've had them on call, and we've withdrawn. Or no, I'm not going to that at all. I know they called me, but no, I'm not contracted for that. Those as well, and we've withdrawn the issuance, revoked it.
So I have a question.
Following that, wait a minute, following that.
So is there any responsibility from the vet to report that they're going to be on call versus, because they have to be on site, right?
Be on site, yeah.
So you guys verify that they're going to be on site.
Mm-hmm.
And if that changes, it's vet's responsibility to report back, it's situations change and no longer be on site.
That would, that would be news to us, right? And we would have a reaction to it. It wouldn't be like a special circumstance or anything like that. Either the vet's on site or they're not, and that's how we would react.
And if they're not, then the permit is withdrawn.
Yep. And we've revoked less than a half dozen, but we've revoked them right up to 3:30 on a Friday when we discovered that 1, 2, or 3 things that are deal breakers, which they're in there for a reason. If they can't be met, then they're out.
How many of those went
Excuse me, Ms. Van Hoff and Ms. Campbell. No, that's okay. I just don't want to, I want to start losing it.
So thank you, Member Shorten, for bringing that up, because that has been a sticking point with me from the beginning. If you issue this temporary use permit, and couldn't we just make sure that that's going to be part of what they do, that a vet is there, and do we have a way that we can just check that and make sure that they follow through with that? Because that's a violation right there, and it would be something that, and I understand that you're doing your inspection usually in advance, so you don't necessarily know, but there should be some kind of way that we can track whether the vet does, and the onus should not be on the vet. It should be on the organization. I mean, if for whatever reason the vet didn't show up, that's something that the organization can deal with on their own.
I'm going to clarify that though. Have we ever had an incident where we have been told a vet is going to be on site and after the fact we discover that there was no vet on site?
I can't think of a specific one. I can't. I don't know if I see you shaking your head.
I thought we did. I thought that happened, but
we've had a few that have come. We've got confirmation that a vet's going to be there, but a vet tech has shown up, and those have been met with violation citations.
So they have been met with violations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Or if the event goes anyway,
and so the violation goes to the organizer?
The violation goes to the property owner.
Okay.
We'll know both when they come in. If there's an organizer that's going to be representing the owner for these applications, there's usually an authorization, a letter of authorization from the owner, or we will require that. And so at that point, we'll have contact information for both the organizer and the owner. Our first call is always going to be to the owner.
Ms. Campbell?
well, part of that, I think something came in, part of the TUPs that have been revoked, did any proceed?
I believe there was one in 2022, 2023 that did.
So if a vet is there and they witness abuse and they report it in the moment, what would be the response by the sheriff's officers on hand?
Shut down the event.
Okay. And you feel that the number of people you have there would allow you to do that safely? I mean, it's probably a call, right? That you'd have to make in the moment.
So it's, yes, we would, because that's a different issue. That's not like a chaos. That's the event, there's an announcement made, the event is closed, people start making their way out.
Okay.
Like a big fight, that's a whole different thing.
Right, because, yes, okay.
So, but the problem, I mean, again, though, the issue is going to be that the vet sees an issue. In reality, they're probably gonna deal with the animal, and then they're gonna come to us. So you're talking a half hour to an hour is gonna elapse before anything even happens.
Right.
And sometimes the event may pass, the vet will say, hey, just so you know, this happened.
Okay. But if by chance the word got to you and somebody came over and they witnessed it, you could do what
We would take action on it,
okay.
correct.
So,
And to the point that was being made about, if the violation went forward, the fines for those aren't, that's why we're doing this, because
Well, there's criminal charges.
if they go through with the event anyway, or the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about with the, what's being.
Oh, okay, so like so if there was an event, if an abuse happened.
Someone commits an act, a criminal act, correct?
And they continue, that's all under the criminal.
Correct.
Exactly. If they went forward with the event, say without the vet, Our fines in the past haven't been sufficient to, it's like a slap on the wrist. That's why we're reviewing it, right? So we're doing the right thing.
And to piggyback on that, we have gotten when we find out that there's not an event, we'll try to drive by, and our patrol staff that is normal patrol, calls aloud. We'll try to see if it looks like an event is going on, and then we report back to Adam in his office about it.
That's a great note, yeah.
Okay.
So I just want.
Wait a minute, Mr. Shorten, did you have a question? And then, Brian, did you have a question? And then Ms. Van Hoff, I'm watching. No? Okay, so Mr. Shorten, Ms. Van Hoff.
I don't have anything.
No? Okay, Gloria, go.
So I just want to make sure I understood what you said. So if the sheriff's department has officers there, they can shut that event down right there.
We can, yeah.
Okay, if there's no vet there.
Oh, well, so I want to be very careful about the vet issue with law enforcement.
Okay.
I don't want to get in the game that we're there
Because I
to make
know
sure that the vet is there.
You're there
That's
to protect the vet.
right, and I want to be,
not
I just don't want to, be
Understand
the asks of law enforcement, then we're going to get involved in trying to verify who's a vet and all that. That's something that I don't think we want to get involved with.
Okay.
But to your point, if we are provided with an act or something that's going on, criminal act, sometimes it's crowd criminal act, and we close the place down. But if a vet comes to us, the vet that's on scene comes to us and said, I have some concern, they're dealing with these animals, we can shut that event down right then and there.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, nope, I got it. So does everybody have a kind of comfort level now on this? I mean, it's a complicated issue. I am not going to ask for a specific direction. I want you to mull it over and consider it and kind of get back to me and let me know where your comfort level is. Again, this is going to be discussed again on Thursday at Public Health and Community Services and again at PED. So again, we're just trying to get a feel. Mine is kind of clearly, this can be, I got you, Brian, 2 seconds. This can be an issue that is kept completely in PUP, which is where it started. Or if we're concerned about actually having an ordinance that we can utilize better to potentially prosecute, does it need to go into animal control? And if it does, what the heck does it look like? Mr. Sager.
Thank you. I appreciate your approach. I think that that's great. It's been a fantastic conversation today, for which I'm incredibly grateful. I do believe that we need to make a statement as a committee, just by consensus, whether we believe that it's important or not to have the 3 exemptions which have been put on the table as exemptions. I think we need to kind of consider that as a separate thing, and then the language and what we do, where we go, whether this takes a dual pathway through the public health and animal welfare and through the
PED
planning process, that's good. But that's a different conversation. I think we have to start with whether or not we believe exemptions are appropriate. And I think that's going to determine some votes here as we move forward and some confidence in our ability to frame an ordinance. So that would be my recommendation.
Is that a motion?
Well, can we take a motion? This is a conversation today. I would
That's
ask
true.
for
Thank you.
consensus. Yes. I would request, Chair, that the committee identify whether they are of the opinion that we support 3 exemptions.
You want to go around the room? Mr.
I
Sullivan?
agree with Brian.
Mr. Shorten?
My answer is not a yes, no. I want to make sure that those 3
Okay, I got that. We're abstaining. Okay. Ms. Campbell?
It's a hard yes, no answer.
That's why I was going to leave it. That's why I was going to leave it open.
Because one of the things I wanted to get back to is something that Mr. Ziller or Dan too said, which was when we do these exemptions, we have this idea that we're this constitutional issue, but that hasn't actually been challenged. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, these exemptions set that up. I mean, what we're basically saying is this particular activity is unacceptable, no matter who's doing it. Right? And so I think we oftentimes don't do something because we're afraid of being challenged in courts. And I get that there could be the potential for this constitutional issue, but we're not targeting a specific group of people, we're targeting people who do a specific thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think that we can do all these things, but it's that also we should be taking a stand about animal cruelty. And I don't know if we can do that through an ordinance that would protect the things that we've talked about, the things that Brian's trying to exempt, and possibly move in that direction.
So that's an I don't know.
That's, I think that we still need to explore this ordinance part of it and our willingness to do that.
I got that. Gloria?
I guess I feel comfortable with that. It's a tough one, but I do feel comfortable with that. I'm considering what our attorney said, and I know that that's important, but I don't like the redundancy of, going ahead and trying to legislate for something that's already been done. And I think we're getting way deep into the woods where we never really intended to be. And I see why we're there. I understand, what Kevin was saying. But this all came about because animals were being treated cruelly. And so I think if we stay on track and try to address that, see what we can do for that, and not targeting, like a specific group, but just targeting the wrongdoing. So I feel comfortable with that.
Including the exemptions.
I think so, yes.
And Brian, I'm assuming you're very comfortable with including the exemptions. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, it's okay, and Matt is gone. So I will say that with a slight edge, the committee supports considering and including the 3 exemptions. Okay? And that will be shared. That will be shared with Public Health by myself on Thursday.
Is there another word we can call it other than exemptions?
I don't think so, because I think that's what they are. They're exemptions. By any other name. Sheriff.
Can I just make a point on the exemption
Please.
stuff? And I apologize for chiming in, but
No.
the exemptions are the issues that expose us to the 1983 stuff, right? Correct. That is the scariest thing for law enforcement, because it's my staff that'll be named, it'll be my name that'll be on the lawsuit when someone finds out that they were targeted based on an exemption. And I understand, Dr. Sagar, I truly appreciate what you're doing. I'm just speaking from an anxiety standpoint from law enforcement. 1983 lawsuits are some of the most difficult lawsuits for law enforcement. And we are the ones that are going to be responsible, that are going to put our names on the complaints. So I want to throw that out there in the space.
Unbeknownst, I don't think that was ever a consideration because nobody was familiar with it. So Administrator Hartman and then Mr. Sagar again, and then really, I want to move on. It's going to be almost 11 o'clock.
Just to add on to Sheriff Tatum's point about 1983 claims, and our state's attorney can back me up on this. If we do not prevail in that lawsuit, we are on the hook for all their attorney fees as well.
Thank you. Important fact. Mr. Sagar, response?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not afraid of a lawsuit in that regard. I know that this is a difficult thing for law enforcement, and I appreciate that so very much, Sheriff. But there are constantly difficult decisions that you all are going to have to make across the board in any issue. Maybe this is loading you up with something else, but I think it's the right thing to do. So I apologize for that, but I'm very supportive of the exemptions, and I can't move forward without them. Thank you.
And so with all of that information, and this is exactly how this was supposed to work, you now truly understand what it is we are attempting to do and the concerns of a wide variety of special interest groups. So if anything occurs to you, I encourage you to attend either the Public Health Committee meeting and or the PED committee and we will continue to work on this, and it might end up being a work in progress again, continuing with our partners here in McHenry County. So thank you very much for that. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you very, very much for your time. Truly appreciated very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Difficult situation with lots of moving pieces. And Sheriff, never apologize for throwing in information that's pertinent. Moving on to 11.3, because we already did 11.2, discussion and direction of the liquor license classification and ordinance. I'm going to turn most of this over to Kathy, who really does the yeoman's work in this regard. I will tell you that as we go forward in budgets, I specifically have asked many agencies and departments to review the amount of fees and permit charges. Some of them have not been looked at in a long, long time. Kathy brought this to our attention. When was the last time we actually looked at the fees for our liquor licenses?
Yeah,
Long time ago.
Yeah, it was
Over
quite
like
some-
10 years.
yeah,
Let me
quite
just
some
say
time
that.
ago.
Again, I look at all of you. You need to ensure that every couple of years, from a policy perspective, that you just ask that that be done, rather than waiting for 10 years to address it. Because again, that's part of our budget, part of our responsibility, and we need to be more vigilant. So Kath, can you kind of explain what you did and how it came about and your recommendations, which I concur with completely, but basically again, she's my expert. Our expert,
So
sorry.
currently we have, in regards to a video gaming license, we would have two types of licenses. So you have a Class A license, which is, mostly our bars and our restaurants. And then if you think of like a liquor store, or a gas station, those would be our Class B. So they are able to sell the liquor, but it had to be closed, right? Whereas an A license was opening and pouring the liquor. Anytime that a establishment brings video game machines into their business, they now have to be placed into a Class A license because they are now required to open and pour that liquor. But
Because that is the state statute requirement to have a video license, is that you must be able to serve open liquor.
So historically, the A license was for bars and restaurants. So my first recommendation is to break up our ordinance even more, to give us more classes. So to keep the A license for the bars and the restaurant, and I'm proposing the addition of a G1 license, so that would be just for those new video gaming cafes that are popping up everywhere,
Lucy's,
right?
Dottie's,
So
Dorothy's.
it's not a bar, it's not a restaurant, it's just a video gaming cafe. So those would be in the G1 category, giving them, they're identifiable more as to what class they are. And then my other proposal is a G2 class. So this would be similar to our patio license that we already have. So think of your restaurant or your bar that has an outside patio. So right now, they would be getting a Class A license with an add-on of a D license, which used to be $500, but we did reduce it a few years ago, or you all reduced it a few years ago to $100. So that would be my second recommendation, is the Class G2, and that's just an add-on license. So potentially a bar or restaurant, they could have an A license with a D add-on and a G2 add-on, and that would be a patio and video gaming licenses. And then additionally, with the ordinance update, I would like to put some language that we do have the video gaming license device requirement for the purchase of those stickers now as well. That was something that you guys added last year. I gave you a summary of what we brought in for total after the first implementation of that. Now that that is underway, we'd like to add that to the ordinance as well. In regards to fees, our recommendation would be for the G1 license to have an annual fee of $1,750. That is, so our regular Class A and B license is currently at $1,500, unless you want to have that discussion today about changing those fees. This would place the Class G1 license slightly above that at $1,750. This is their primary source of this. They're not doing bars, they're not doing, food or anything like that. And then the G2, we would want that on par right with the patio license, so $100 as well. So if a bar or restaurant has the patio and the video gaming license, that would bring them to $1,700. However, that would still be less than the G1 of a video gaming cafe.
Ms.
I
Campbell.
need to see a list
Ms.
of
Campbell.
all of the different, do you have a list like that of all of the different types of licenses and the
Yes, that's in your
associated
ordinance,
fees?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So,
It's in the handout I sent you. I sent you last week too.
yeah, Ms. Campbell and then Mr. Sager.
G1 is your gaming, the new gaming that you're proposing?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. G2 is your patio? No,
No, there would
D1.
be an add-on similar to a patio. Our patio is currently D.
D1, no,
Yes.
I meant to say that. D1 is the patio. What's G2?
So D is
gaming.
currently a patio, so G2 would be video gaming.
With patio?
No, video gaming inside a bar or restaurant.
That's why he asked for a list.
But you could have a patio.
Oh, okay, so the G1 is a standalone.
G1 would be standalone, G2
Okay,
would be an
G2 is the
add-on.
gaming added on to a
Bar or
restaurant.
yes.
So that's why it's 100. Okay, that's an add-on to restaurant. Okay. And then D1 is your patio. And that's why they're 100, that's the same. Got it, thanks.
And we would bring these forward. Further discussion about whether you want to raise the liquor licenses would be at a later particular time, maybe included when we start to review budgetary items.
I believe that the fees are drawn out in the ordinance, and we probably want to do it all at once.
Can do that too.
Kathy, when did you send that?
I sent that on the 23rd.
Okay, let me find it.
Mr. Sager?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm supportive of Kathy's recommendations. I do think that, we've been a little bit giving, I guess, to our liquor businesses, and not that I don't support them. I think that's great. But I do appreciate Kathy's review and effort of these, and so thank you. Two questions I have. The first, or comment, I guess, is the first one. I'm not generally in favor of cafes. I'm just not. It's a personal thing with regards to gambling and that type of thing. So I think cafes make it a little bit too easy, and if we're not associating a liquor requirement with this, or we're not imposing a food requirement or something like that with it, I think that's problematic. But I'm not going to vote against it for that. If Kathy thinks that's where we need to go, I'm going to support it. The second thing is I'm a little bit confused when we keep saying outdoor patio. There is no suggestion at all, is there, that if they have an outdoor patio, that we're going to allow video gaming on the patio. That's still going to be contained interiorly to the business. We're just saying that they have now a patio, so their footprint is larger, so they have more customers to be accommodated and more customers active in the video gaming location interior to the business. Correct?
That's correct. The location of the video game machines wouldn't change. The patio is unchanged. It was just mentioned for a comparison, right? Because some of our liquor licenses in our bars right now, they are already paying the $1,500 fee plus the $100 add-on for the patio. And so this was just, giving you a comparison to let you know that this was also an add-on license. Nothing would change with D license, correct?
Right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Mr. Short.
So the G1 would be a new class, or we just increase? Okay.
Both G1 and G2 would be a new class. It would go in, once the ordinance is approved, it would go into effect for anything that's new, but then come liquor renewals for next year, I would reclassify some of them appropriately. So a video gaming cafe, which was typically an A, I would now reclassify them into the G1 when they renew. So that would be done at the time of renewal period.
So we already have businesses that fit into that category. Right now, they're being shoehorned.
Correct.
So Kathy, I'm looking at this, did you say $1,750 for the G1? That's what I wrote down.
That was my recommendation, yes, but that's a second discussion, is whether we want to think about all the fees.
Okay, I
totally.
just have a question though. Why would that be more than the Class A and Class B and Class C at 1,500?
Our thought process on that was just that this was not one of the establishments that's also, their primary business is selling food and everything. It's just strictly video gaming.
Okay.
And to Member Sager's comments, they're kind of in a class of their own there, just being the cafes. And after discussion, we thought that'd be appropriate, but that's why we're here, to see, what we want to talk about with the fees entirely.
I'm a little uncomfortable with charging them more than the A and the B. That's just my feeling on that. I don't know why they should be paying more.
Mr. Sager?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Gloria, but I'm of the exact opposite position. Their whole business model is based upon gambling. That's their entire business model. In the others, like in a bar, for example, the bar has a business, usually of liquor, of course, but also of gaming, and also of, in some instances, snacks or ready-to-eat food and that kind of stuff. A restaurant that has a gaming license, that's a restaurant which requires a liquor license as well. So they got food, they have liquor, and they have gaming. It's a different model. This model is strictly on gambling. I think that if I would even go to 2,000, I think we need to have it higher than 1,750. That's my position, with all due respect.
Okay, so just for clarification, then the gaming, there's no food, there's just you go in and you game.
Food and liquor.
Okay.
And the state statute requires that if you provide a video gaming in that regard, you must be able to have open liquor served.
I see.
So like a liquor store or a gas station, those were our B licenses. So when they have video gaming, they were put into an A license. Now they would still be a B with a G2 add-on. So it would just be the designated video gaming cafes in the G1.
Any other discussion, comment?
Is there any discussion further on the fees as they stand now?
I like what you did. I like just what you did. It's fine.
Is that a motion to approve it as presented and move forward? Is there a second to that? Brian, you're on mute. I can't hear you. I see your lips moving.
This is still, I'm sorry, this is still a discussion, isn't it? Is it not?
Well, I can take you know what? Yeah, it is. I apologize. I keep forgetting it was not a resolution, but it would be a concurrence to move forward.
Well, yeah, with the committee's direction, we can then develop this into an ordinance revision and bring it back.
And also, I would ask then too that we consider increasing or consider having a conversation about increasing the liquor license fees just in general. See what other counties are doing.
So I did provide you some, statistics in that email about what the other counties are charging currently. So McHenry County, I listed there on the back page of it, what we are charging currently for a Class A, B, C, and so on. DuPage County, they have their annual liquor license fee is $22.50 with the same application fee of $1,000. That's a one-time application fee. They don't have dedicated, that includes dedicated Class G1 and G2 licenses as well. Lake County, they don't have dedicated ones for the liquor license classification, and their fees are similar to ours currently. Kane County, they also have no dedicated video gaming license, but their fees are higher at $2,500. So we're kind of split right down the middle there. We are the same fees as Lake County, but they don't have dedicated, whereas DuPage does, and they're $22.50, and Kane does not at $2,500. So.
Again, I want to have the conversation in some kind of a direction. Again, we talk about the budget, we talk about our limitations. This is the time to talk about fee increases or not. So looking for comment, direction.
Well, I'm comfortable with that fee if everyone else feels, you know.
And to leave
okay
our
with
liquor
it.
license fees where they are?
I'd like to see them go up, actually.
Is there, I guess I'm gonna ask, is there more administrative costs associated with the doing of the permitting, the licensing, than there were 10 years ago?
I mean, for sure, there's, you know, there, especially within renewing and with the new ones, you know, just making sure that all of the documentation is coming in correctly. There's a lot of back and forth correspondence with the applicants to ensure that things are being submitted correctly in a timely manner. And then a lot of times, you know, with the application fee, we have so many that are started and then never finished, or started and then brought back 2 years from now. So there is, you know, a lot to keep track of administratively within that, yes.
In addition, we went from, I'll let you talk in a minute, David. In addition, there are costs that we incurred to create a software program so people did not have to come in. They could fill out their programming, permitting, paying. I mean, there were those costs that we just kind of absorbed over time to provide a better service to people. We've experienced a 7% inflation rate a few years ago. Right now, they're saying inflation is at 4%, just giving you all of those reasons. You know, I don't want to harm. I'm a big economic development girl, but I also think that people need to recognize that everything increases. So just conversation. Ms. Campbell, Mr. Shorten, and then Mr. Christensen, who was waving his hand way back there.
So I was just wondering, like, I see the, where we are compared to everybody else, and how long, I'm just kind of wondering, to your point, things are going up expense-wise. If we wait, the longer we wait, and then we realize, oh my gosh, we're not covering those expenses, then we do this huge increase, and then everybody's balking because, well, why is it so big? Rather than incrementally to, you know, to grab the, not grab them, but to make sure that we're not falling further and further behind every year when we're not covering our costs. And I don't know how long these fees have been at this level.
At least 10 years, if not longer.
1994 was the last time.
Okay, so, so my concern would be if these are adequately taking care of the expense of running this program. I mean, that's a long time to be at the same level. I mean, we've done that on a couple of things. We've done that with the PED, which is why we went through that. We did that with our wetland mitigation. It was 10 years on that. And that was quite a loss there.
Okay.
And so that's my only concern.
That should be, no, that's okay. That should be a policy, unwritten, but a policy that all of you as board members remember and bring forward every couple of years to ask them to be reviewed. Right? I mean, that's our responsibility. So I just, you know, shame on me as well. So I throw that out. What are you thinking? Mr. Shorten, you're next. Then Mr. Christensen.
So we do licensing for unincorporated areas.
Correct.
Do all the municipalities handle their own
Correct.
licensing? I mean, I'd like to see a comparison of our fee structure relative to the municipalities. I recognize the impacts of inflation and what have you, but right now, specifically, as I look at Class A, our bars and restaurants right now are under a lot of challenges, and I'd have a difficult time raising those fees on those folks. I do agree with Brian on the G1, 1750. I mean, I'd be more inclined to raise that because I look at those businesses differently than our bars and our restaurants right now that are struggling under the weight of everything going on in the economy locally.
They just got mashed though too by the state with increased fees,
Yep.
just noting.
Yeah, I like what Mr. Shorten just said there. We have to, it would be great if we did look at what the municipalities are doing, because we don't want to drive people away from maybe doing an establishment that's, you know, would be in county.
So so I'm looking for that concurrence, is that we're going to direct staff to do some comparisons of liquor license costs in municipalities within McHenry County We've already done it to counties, and then also to go forward and create what needs to be created with the new liquor license classifications as was presented.
I like that idea because you,
The
Kathy.
discussion.
Kathy, you provided like DuPage County here, but they have 300, what are they at, like 900,000 people, and we're at 300,000.
But very little unincorporated area
So-
left.
So,
Very little unincorporated area left. Everything is done in municipalities, just, you know.
But I'd also say, I want to cover our costs because
No.
that doesn't, I mean, at some point, that's great, but anytime we're not covering our costs, somebody else is picking up the tab because somebody else is paying for it.
So
So
what
that's-
your
I'm,
point was good. Incremental increases rather than a big hit is always a
so
better
let's
thing.
do that. I'm getting concurrence. We will have staff go ahead and investigate the possible increase of liquor licenses and then specifically what you presented with regard to the video gaming. Yay, I got that. Brian, you okay with that too? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
David, I'm
Oh, David, I'm sorry. I apologize.
And I appreciate that. And I realize these are other classes of liquor licenses, but you asked the question, is there more work involved? There's a tremendous amount more work involved with the instant action plans required of these temporary liquor licenses. It's 3 to 5 hours of EMA time, if not more, especially since they're not used to that process. So we go into a teach mode. We guide them through that process. It takes a lot more time to do an IAP or an instant action plan with somebody who just is having an outdoor festival, and and they're going to have liquor there, because it's not the road that they walk on. So you asked if there was more staff.
Thank you. That's a good
There's
point.
a tremendous amount of staff time on my part, especially if it's their first time. And so we are extremely patient, and we do a lot of the work for them, but it is. And you asked that question, and I needed to put that
No,
on.
I'm glad you did, because my other question is, now that I hate to do this, listening to what the conversation was with regard to the new requirement for rodeos to have a plan and have that reviewed, and then the liquor, do we give them any money for that? Those guys?
Well, it's all just the general fund.
Okay, keep that in mind when we do budget again.
Rodeos
Just
take
letting you
us
know.
more time.
So, I got you, I
That's
got
a
it.
whole different class of license that's not
No,
even
right,
listed
right.
here, so.
Well, we should
Yeah.
probably
But
look
we'll
then
look
at
at
that
it.
too. If we're gonna
Right,
look at the
right.
whole, we should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I also get then costs of how much it costs EMA to do those reviews so that we incorporate that. Okay, so we have it. Concurrence, we've got it. Thank you, Kathy, very much. And I've just given you more work. You know what, can I do this just so everybody knows? Brian, do you want to kind of address 11.5 and where you are with that proposal?
Sure. Thanks, Chair. I think that we need to keep this very short. The first is that, this was brought to the table because we were getting some concerns about two different things: public safety with firing in private backyard firing ranges, if you will, and we were getting some concerns about noise. We've had some discussion among staff and others, and I was just putting something out there so that we could have that discussion. I'm grateful for the time that the State Attorney's Department office put in, grateful for Scott's time, grateful for certainly planning's time, Adam, and others. But I think we've kind of come to agreement that the current approach, which is being taken by the police department, is kind of evolved, and it's a good one, where we are making use of the social service officers in the sheriff's department to engage in conversations with people about safety and about politeness, if you will, or the nuance of nuisance control. And so I'm satisfied with that. I think they're seeing some success in that area, and I think it's incumbent upon us just to let them continue with that process to see if we can't, reduce the complaints, the concerns, and certainly address the safety and noise issues. So that's where I am.
Can you clarify something?
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, absolutely. Ms. Campbell?
Brian, when you say social service officers, you don't mean the social worker, you mean
The police social
Like-
workers,
I'm sorry?
the police social worker program.
Yes.
Oh, you are meaning that?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So we're good? Discussion over? Good. Okay. Moving on to home rule. Mr. Hartman, the floor is yours.
Oh my God.
Well, not much more to report. We are still waiting on the state's attorney's opinion on whether or not you can decouple home rule from the county executive. We do not have that in hand. That is a critical piece of the information. The next steps, so Administrative Services Chairman Joe Gaudemeyer had requested 2 resolutions to be drafted and appear on the Administrative Services agenda. One, proposing the binding referendum question, and the second, proposing the advisory referendum question. Both of those will appear on his agenda for his committee to discuss. My understanding is that it's really going to have a discussion, and then those will float to the county board for full discussion on what path, if any, that the county board wants to pursue. Hopefully by then we'll have that opinion in hand.
Any questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of wondering, so we would have to have, we're gonna have both come forward, right? Would we need to have an answer, or would we, in order to get it on the ballot, you would need to do it in July?
July, or you have a special meeting shortly thereafter, but I think it's early to mid-August is your deadline.
Is the deadline, right? The deadline's in August.
But it's
Before our meeting.
Yeah, 79 days prior to the election.
So I guess what I'm concerned about is having a really, and we are, right? But if we're ending here, then more of a robust discussion about if we honestly think this is, I mean, so you're talking about decoupling from the elected.
The question to the state's attorney as to whether or not.
I understand that. So, but that was obviously asked because that is of concern to some people.
Hands down.
And so I guess that could change the discussion. I don't know. I guess having that discussion, right, about whether or not you would go forward if you thought it was going to be, if the elected chair or elected
County executive.
Thank you. Wasn't decoupled from what I don't know. It doesn't seem like it can, but who knows? Maybe there's something there.
I have always been of the opinion that an advisory is best because there's many issues that are associated with that action, creating home rule, that I don't think, if we had a 2-hour discussion about an animal ordinance, home rule is a significant governmental change. And so, I mean, I would just tell you that my comfort level is to ask because I think it gives us an opportunity to talk about other things. But I don't think that we're anywhere near passing a binding referendum on home rule when there are that many issues that would be considered because it really would change the operations.
But
that's just me.
Yeah, but my concern about putting it as an advisory, I mean, I would be fine with going forward with an advisory if I felt like we had a better understanding of what it was. In other words, I mean, we're kind of in this role to help guide policy. And I almost feel like we're saying that, well, we have some issues with local control. There's some things that we're concerned about. Let's throw it out to the public to see what they think. It's going to be a much harder, I mean, I'm trying to understand why we would put that out as an advisory before we even know if we would want to do it ourselves.
Because the question would be is, I think, and I don't know, I got the impression last time we talked about it, there's a huge amount of support to doing a referendum of that nature. And mine is, why would I have staff spend huge amounts of time on it if there's no interest?
No, I'm sorry, what did you say? Because I was not for an advisory.
When this committee discussed it, there was a definitive majority of those people who were here in that committee meeting that supported moving forward with the possibility of a referendum on home rule. That I can tell you.
In this meeting?
In this committee, right, when Joe brought it, or maybe it was Administrative Services.
Joe
I
did bring it
apologize,
forward.
it was Administrative Services. So I think that was it. Mine is, I don't want staff to spend a huge amount of time on a binding referendum where every single one of those, we'll never make it to July. We'll never have an answer by August, whatever the date is. We won't.
But even putting out an advisory is only going to be, it's only going to be valuable in that the public actually knows what you're asking them. I mean, there have been non-binding questions put out that have been so sparse that people are voting one way or the other without really knowing completely what they're voting on. I kind of feel like this is such a huge structural change if it goes through. I just feel like I don't know. So what if they say yes and we decide, we've looked at it a little bit further and no, we're not interested.
Then you come back and that's what you explain. That's the whole point. My estimation of my many years of that is what government is. If you're a good public official, you are constantly dialoguing with your people.
Yeah,
we're going to investigate, right, we're going to ask you if you're even interested. If you're not interested in changing a huge governmental structure, I'm not going to look into it. But these are the advantages, we still need to do a lot more investigation, but we don't want to spend our limited resources in looking into this unless we are prepared to do that on your behalf. If you're not interested, so be it. It's an election season. That is part of what appeals to me as well. People are already going to be out in the public, hopefully, even if they don't normally do that. They would be doing that as part of talking to their peeps. Again, it's just an opinion.
I think there's talking with your peeps all the time, right?
You would hope.
Well, that's true.
I can guarantee you people who want to run for election are going to be talking.
Right, they're going to be talking, but I think this is such a huge issue, and if we don't know where we're standing on it going forward, how do you that's fine. We can talk about
I think it's comfort level. Brian, did you have something you wanted to add? Your hand was kind of up, not up. I couldn't tell.
I just think we're too late in the game, personally, for either one of them, advisory or an actual, ordinance to go forward. I just think there's just simply not enough time to educate the public. And so if we don't have enough time to adequately educate, then I think we're just making things much more difficult for future boards to take action in which they have confidence. So I just think it's too late. If this has been brought up in January, totally different scenario, but I can't support it now. Thank you.
Got it.
Oh, no, I don't support it at all.
I don't either.
Well, that's the end.
That's
the end. That's it. That's four.
Brian put it perfect.
That's four.
Exactly
so I would say the discussion on the home rule from this committee that can be shared with any other committee that is discussing that is that the majority of the committee members did not want to pursue.
And as a member of Administrative Services, I would ask that when this comes up.
Oh yeah, we'll always do that, always. That's why we structured the committees the way that we did. So there's really a purpose when we do committees the way we do them. So I will convey that, thank you. All right, no executive session is needed. I will take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Ms. Van Hoff. Committee meeting is adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.